Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. See if anyone in the chat can hear me. If you can, just push one. Kenny Burgess is a trip, man. He said Icy Hot Stunners had you hostage. Nah, they ain't had me hostage, man. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 357. Economics. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. The docket and description beneath the video for you to follow along with. Also, just as an FYI, we are not certified financial planners. If you want a certified financial planner, go to cfp.net, look up one in your area. If you want to engage in the discussion or contribute, there will be a link in the chat for you to join the panel. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so one of us can acknowledge you. We can advance you to the panel. If you don't raise your hand, you're going to be sitting there for a long time. I'm already late, so let me set it off, man, with the first item on the docket. All right. First item on the docket is from CNBC.com. Nearly half of millennials feel stressed about this year after buying a home. In the US, home prices are continually on the rise, and as a result, 60% of millennial homeowners say housing costs make it difficult to achieve their financial goals. Specifically, nearly half, 42%, worry about whether they'll be able to save enough to pay for their children's college tuition. That's according to research from home equity site HomeTap. In its 2019 home ownership study, HomeTap surveyed 675 homeowners, including 241 millennials, in order to take a closer look at how high housing costs impact U.S. owners. Of those surveyed, 73% reported feeling house rich, cash poor, at least some of the time. That's a new term. I haven't heard of that. It's unsurprising that millennial homeowners are beginning to stress over saving for their kids' college fees. For many millennials, paying their kids' tuition is a major priority. In fact, 59% of well-off millennials say they delay saving for retirement in order to cover their children's higher education. But the higher costs of home ownership aren't making this goal any easier. Rising home prices are undeniable. In 1940, the median home value in the US was $2,938. By 2000, it had risen to $119,600. And today, it's just over $230,000. When adjusted for inflation, the median home price in 1940 would still only have been $30,000 if calculated using $2,000. At the same time as housing costs are creeping upward, so too is college tuition. During the 1988 to 1989 school year, students attended public four-year institutions paid an average of $3,360 with prices adjusted to reflect 2018 dollars. According to the College Board's Trends in College Pricing 2018 report, now 30 years later, the average has risen to $10,600 for the 2018 to 2019 school year. Plus, in the US, wages for US workers have barely increased over the last 40 years. When you sorry, when you couple that with the fact that many millennials still have their own student debt to pay off, it's no wonder they are feeling stress over the impact expensive mortgage payments could have on their other long-term financial goals. That's why if you're buying a home, if buying a home is on your list of goals, it helps to make it as affordable as possible. In other words, try to control the controllable. Factors such as where you live or how you choose to go about acquiring a home can help mitigate costs. Consider number one, consider the location. Number two, run the numbers first. Number three, keep an eye on the market. Number four, get the best rate you can. So millennials are hard, the hot topic these days because their spending power is very little in comparison to the boomers in the silent generation before them. You can buy a home in 1940 for the same price you can buy a used car today. Now you can't do that. So it's unbelievable that that doesn't get discussed. But people will tell you that you know, if you just pray, if you just hold on a little tighter, everything will be all right. We're not seeing the results of that anytime soon. What is this? All right, let me see if I can see if I can pull it up in Edge. All right, this one is from the bostonglobe.com. Some Boston neighborhoods face severe shortage of child care and it's unaffordable almost everywhere. We are investigating the cost of daycare in Massachusetts. Tell us what you think. The chasm between supply and potential demand for childcare is so wide across much of Boston that in some neighborhoods there aren't enough seats for roughly half the children, according to the new report from the Boston Opportunity Agenda. Only about 1 in 4 children under the age of 5 have access to high quality programs as defined under the state and national standards, the report found. That shortage is most pronounced in Rosendale, West Roxbury, and Hyde Park, which lack high quality slots for 9 out of every 10 children, the report found. So what is happening is that there is scarcity in institution and infrastructure development, which is leading to a lot of Black and brown people to be in a position of having to choose between going to work or staying home and taking care of your kids. And if you can't work, you can't bring in any income, then you're screwed. Which creates a more economic divide. It widens the economic divide between black and white. And some people are resorting now to homeschooling their children. This is the reality, and I don't see many people in the manosphere talking about this. That this is real. This is real right here. All right, let me get to the next article. All right, this next one is from CNBC.com. Elizabeth Warren blasts Navient student loan servicer, where billionaire Leon Cooperman is a stakeholder. Democratic presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren lashed out at billionaire Leon Cooperman on Monday for his stake in student loan servicer Navient and stressed the importance of forgiving student debt. I care about an entire generation of students being crushed by student loan debt, deferring their American dream because they can't afford it, Warren, the senior senator for Massachusetts, wrote in a tweet. I'm not afraid to stand up to the wealthy and well-connected. Navient is being sued by several states for misleading borrowers. An audit by the U.S. Department of Education last year suggested the company uses deceptive practices. Outstanding education debt has outpaced credit card and out of debt. And the average college graduate leaves school $30,000 in the red today, up from $10,000 in the 1990s. Default rates are on the rise, and a senior student loan official recently resigned from the Trump administration, calling its lending system predatory and unsustainable. Warren plans to pay for her student debt forgiveness plan with 2% annual levy on accumulations of wealth exceeding $50 million and an additional 6% tax on wealth over $1 billion. Hedge fund manager Cooperman, chairman and CEO of New York-based investment advisory firm Omega Advisors, criticized Warren on Monday for what he describes as her vilification of billionaires. The world is a substantially better place because of Bill Gates, Michael Bloomberg, David Rubenstein, Bernie Marcus, Ken Lagone, Cooperman said on CNBC's halftime report. Cooperman went on to describe Warren's plan as idiocy and said they try to turn people's heads by promising a lot of free stuff. There are other signs that Warren could face an uphill battle in how she plans to pay for student debt forgiveness. Nearly 60% of Americans support a proposal in which borrowers who earn less than $250,000 get $50,000 of their student debt canceled, according to a Quinnipiac University poll in April. Yet that backing drops to 44% if such a plan were funded through a tax on the wealthy. Warren suggested that Cooperman was criticizing her to protect his own self-interest. One thing I know he cares about his fortune, Warren wrote in a tweet on Tuesday. He's a shareholder in Navient, a student loan company that has cheated borrowers and used abusive, misleading tactics. Warren has been a prominent critic of Navient, one of the largest student loan services or servicers in the country. She said Cooperman went so far as to ask how I might impact his investment in the last earnings call with Navient. To that end, Mark Kantrowicz, Kantrowicz, a higher education expert, said if there's widespread student loan forgiveness, student loan services and lenders would take a big hit. I say, who gives a fuck? Yeah. So I think Elizabeth Warren is going about this the wrong way. I think you should take the tariffs that come from China and use that to pay off the national student loan debt issue, and cut it by 50% and leave the rest of the 50% up to the other people, and then figure that out later. If you try to pay it all off at once, there's no way you're going to be able to pay it. Who just joined us? Hey, what's going on, man? Tomorrow.
Hey, what's up, man?
Chilling, man.
Yeah,
Chilling.
hey, man, that dude with the student loans investment payment, dude, here's what they should do. They should just allow you to discharge it through bankruptcy or something. I don't think education should have ever been commoditized the way it should be. I mean, education is an investment in society. I mean, it's ridiculous that you have to pay to go to school. I mean, you should pay to be an ignorant piece of garbage. That's
Mhm.
what you should pay for. But going to school, like, come on, man. I mean, like, okay, you go to school, you pay more taxes. Use that to pay back the damn school. I mean, dude, like student loans, like the way it's done, it's ridiculous and stupid.
Yeah, it's Ronald Reagan's fault. Reagan decided
Oh,
in
of course
his
it is.
yeah, Reagan decided in his administration that if people want to go to school, they should pay for it. They took the
And
money from the educational budget and gave it to Lockheed Martin to build the F-35 that we have today.
like, here's what you should do.
Hmm.
The moment people open their mouths about tax cuts, if it
Hmm.
exclusively help wealthy people, you lock them up for tax fraud. Period.
Hmm.
Like forever. Like there's no other reason not to lock people up for that. Because if you're gonna come on TV and spout all this stuff, I mean, I get what Elizabeth Warren is saying or doing is wrong, but here's the thing. Other countries don't allow corporations to hold no say in media when it comes to their tax rates.
Hmm.
Germany haven't changed their tax rates.
Hmm.
England haven't changed their tax rates. They have much higher rates than we have here, and people just get on TV and just lie about it. I
Hmm.
say this. I mean, like we have people who I mean, it's like now they're just now holding talks about the plant in Mississippi. Like you realize all those people still work there, right?
Hmm.
Most of those people still work back at that plant. I know because I just went through there yesterday, and all those same people who are undocumented work work back at the same plant. So I'm like, look, look. Farmers routinely use cheap labor. I mean, like all this stuff is like people just don't know when to quit when it comes to asking for stuff when they're already rich. I mean, they act like they just can't make it through the next pay period,
Hmm.
and they invest in things that they know they shouldn't be invested in.
Yeah.
Like student loans. What would make you want to invest in a company like Navient, especially with they damn practices?
Well, that's what China said. China said that the difference between the United States and China is that our corporations are not in control of the government. The government is always in
Yes.
control of the government. Whereas in the United States, your enterprises control your government. That's not a good policy.
Facebook and Twitter attacked the country to get Donald Trump elected. That would never happen in another country.
Hmm.
They would have locked up everybody at both of those corporations.
Hmm.
They would have did that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like that's what happened. They were able to do that through companies who donate a lot of money to these political campaigns. And it's like that's where we're at, man. It's like all these people need to get off of TV.
Hmm.
You don't even know the difference between news and opinion now.
Hmm.
I mean, if you got people like SC Cup What school does she go to? No school. Like, what the hell is this? Like, Don Lemon. Okay, you go from Walter Cronkite to Don Lemon. You got Sean Hannity going around doing campaign. Like, dude, the First Amendment wasn't about super. It wasn't about this. News was supposed to be the fourth estate for a reason. It
hmm
was supposed to keep a hold on all this stuff. Now they just withhold all the information.
hmm
It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's it's,
at some point, they're gonna have to do something because this is not sustainable going forward.
it's not.
There's money out there. The amount of money they're getting from these tariffs could have paid off 50% of this by so far. What are you talking? 60, 70 billion dollars on Chinese goods coming in. I mean,
Not only not only that, the top, I think maybe 150 corporations in this country pay no taxes.
mhm,
Facebook pay no taxes. Amazon pays no taxes. Berkshire Hathaway pays no taxes. ExxonMobil pays no taxes.
mhm,
Verizon Wireless pays no taxes. AT&T pays no taxes. And it's not like they got fast service either. They
mhm,
just don't even give a damn with all the money that they're saving. So
mhm.
I'm like, look, we just need to go back to the constitutional amount that you're supposed to pay for your company. Still have to pay a hell of a lot of taxes. You think I enjoy writing $75,000 check for all my damn trucks every damn quarter that they on the road?
Right.
But if I'm a huge company like Swift, I don't get to be taxed. Why? Because I put a lot of um, campaign contributions, so that way they get to pay no tax. Like, dude, our country was never meant for it to be set up this way.
Mhm,
Never meant for
mhm,
it. And especially with companies getting as big as they are, the stock market is only the way it is because of corporate buybacks. There haven't been any meaningful increases in, like, the wage that people are being paid. Like, dude, none of this stuff is sustainable.
mhm,
None of it. And nobody's paying any taxes from
mhm.
these corporations.
Yeah.
Like, man, we're in a lot of trouble after this next crash. I say, you know what? Let Don't even worry about the student loan things until the banks need more money.
Mhm,
In exchange for that money, you get to write off every student loan in this country. We could have paid off every single mortgage in this country with about 30% of the money that we gave the banks the last time. Where the
mhm.
hell you think would our economy be if everybody didn't have a mortgage?
The thing
Like
is,
this.
the thing is, they're paying for an education where there's no job, there's no future prospects for jobs. How is this possible that you can have somebody enroll for gender studies or something like that? Like, it doesn't make any sense for them to be in debt like that. These programs that are non-essential should be removed from state colleges and community colleges altogether. We're not paying for any of this stuff anymore. We're going STEM. That's it. End of discussion. I don't want to hear nothing else.
Yeah, and it's like, what it is that
Mhm,
most people go to school to get their self-esteem caught up in the degree that they go get,
mhm,
not the overall benefit of society that is going to happen,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
So it's just like, how come we don't have an army of doctors or being nurses being turned out by these schools? Like, no more BS studies. You're
mhm,
going to be doing this, and this, and this
mhm,
is the only reason why you go to school. I mean, I
mhm.
understand the diversity of education, so everybody can get a participation trophy, but it's a threat to national security to have people in this much debt over private corporations who really don't do anything
Right.
to the damn country. It's just crazy. And people are like, oh, MOT, what would you do that? Because dude, I gotta pay all my taxes, bro. I gotta
Mhm.
pay all mine. There is no waiting for me.
Just paid
And the
mine.
same people, yeah,
Just paid mine's
same
last
people in
week,
my
man.
field.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
paid mine's last week, man. Paid a couple of stacks, man. IRS on my back. So you
yeah.
know, I think it's unfair, man. I think when you look at Cuba, it's interesting that you brought up the doctors or army of doctors. Cuba spits out doctors and nurses like it's nothing.
And
Yeah.
it's supposedly a communistic society.
hmm
Like,
They have doctors all over the world.
they do. and they pay that country a grip of money to have them out there. I mean,
Mhm.
Castro wanted to give like a couple thousand doctors when Hurricane Katrina happened for free. So it's
Even
like,
mhm,
so, so it's like, look, our country definitely isn't ran the way it's supposed to be ran. I
mhm,
mean, you know, the debt jubilation would be one thing, but we have some major structural problems, and you can't have these billionaires owning media. You can't have this advertising running the show
mhm,
because all the money that they're saving in taxes, they just turn around and buy a whole bunch of media advertising with it.
mhm.
And what they do is they shut out smaller companies because they're saving all this money. They're not paying any taxes, and they turn around and do all this stuff with it. So it's like, how's the country supposed to run?
Right.
And most of the people are right wing in nature who claim
Mhm.
that they don't want government interference. When with no government interference, the person with the most money wins. It's so bad. Like, our country was never founded upon Fox News having that much power in this country.
Right. Or the
Never
Koch
was.
brothers.
No, it never was. I
Mhm.
mean, dude. We broke up AT&T. We broke up Standard Oil. There haven't
Mhm.
been any breakup of any company, and these companies are 1,000 times larger than what those companies were at their height when they got broke up.
The biggest thing they broke up was Black Wall Street.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But they kind of use military aircraft to do that with. But yeah, man. So that's the way it is, dude. And this stuff is gonna be a crisis on top of a crisis. So you just gotta sit back and wait.
That's why I started taking my money out of the bank, started putting it somewhere else.
Oh man, God. No, I sit on the board of the credit union that my money's in. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, all right, try it if you want to.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Let me hit this next article. This one is from the Atlantic.com. The inflation gap. A new analysis indicates that rising prices may have been quiet, quietly taxing low-income families more heavily than rich ones. This is what MLT was talking about. In an era of wild, let me expand this out. In an era of wild inequality, sputtering wages and rising rents and healthcare costs, the American working class has had one consistent financial respite. Stuff broadly defined is cheap. Sure, workers might not be able to afford a decent apartment, a college education, or sufficient elder care for an infirm relative, or to ever get sick. But burgers, leggings, yard tools, bicycles, dishes, smartphones, soda, these items have become less expensive thanks to big box stores and internet retailers and imports from abroad. Or perhaps not. A new analysis from a prominent group of economic researchers suggests not only that rising prices have been quietly taxing low income families more heavily than rich ones, but also that after accounting for that trend, the American poverty rate is significantly higher than the official measure suggests. Call it inflation inequality, a subtle, pernicious way that the fortunes of the rich and the poor have diverged. Using government data and scanner data from retail stores, the barcodes that get swiped at Target, the produce codes that get punched in at grocery stores, Xavier Jarovel of the London School of Economics found that from 2004 to 2015, the prices of the products purchased by the bottom income quintile increased faster than the prices of the products purchased by the top income quintile. As a result, low income families experience an annual rate of inflation conservatively estimated to at 0.44 percentage points higher than that of high income families. The trend is small enough to go unnoticed year by year. For a given family, it might mean shelling out just pennies more on a grocery run or back to school shopping trip, but such changes compound over time. wedging apart the welfare of struggling households and flourishing ones. Rich families get competitive prices on organic groceries and athleisure and better electronics. Poor families end up paying more for those quality alternatives. Jaravel suggested a mechanism behind the finding. Rising wealth and income inequality mean that richer people have ever more disposable income, creating a market incentive for retailers to cater to the needs of lawyers in Chicago and tech analysts in Boston over childcare workers in Mississippi Delta and part-time retailer workers in California's Central Valley. More firms catering to well-off consumers means more competition for those consumers means more product innovation and product choice for those consumers, as well as suppressed prices. Fewer firms catering to low-income consumers means less competition for those consumers means less product innovation and product choice for those consumers and increasing prices. In an interview with Jaravel, offered a beer as an example. In the past 20 years, the taste of high income consumers have fueled an explosion in craft brewing, whereas the market at the lower end has remained stagnant in comparison. A small batch of sour IPA is more expensive than a Keystone Light, but fancy beers are cheaper, more plentiful, and more accessible than they were in the uh, early aughts, where whereas beers that come in a 30 pack taste the same and cost as much as they always did. Of course, luxury products are more expensive, Jaravel told me, but inflation is about a different thing. It's not about the level, it's about the change. Inflation inequality has not filtered into government calculations, at least not yet. These patterns are all very, very strong, Jaravel told me. But you can't measure them with the standard data that the Bureau of Labor Statistics has, because the Bureau of Labor Statistics doesn't keep track of spending patterns within these very detailed product categories. But new research from Jaravel, along with Christopher Wimmer and Sophie Collier of the Center on Poverty and Social Policy at Columbia University, suggests that it should. Accounting for differential changes in prices would bump up the 2018 poverty rate by 8%, adding 3.2 million people to the ranks of the officially poor and 836,000 people to the ranks of those in deep poverty. According to standard government measures, the real household income of the bottom quintile fell 1% from 2004 to 2018. Using the new inflation sensitive accounting, it fell more than 7%. Inequality, in other words, is depriving low income families of wages, shutting them out from the benefits of economic growth and making day to day life more expensive. It's not just that inflation is not uniform across income groups, says Michael Linden of the Groundwork Collaborative, a think tank and advocacy organization that worked with Wimmer, Collier, and Jaravel to produce the new poverty and inflation analysis. It's that it's not uniform across income groups because of inequality itself. The new data undercut the popular conservative narrative that falling prices and rising wages have functionally eradicated poverty in the United States. They imply that the United States might be systematically underestimating the amount of poverty and the scope of inequality within its borders. They also act as a sharp rebuke to the Trump administration's efforts to use a different, lower inflation measure to calculate poverty statistics and thus shrink eligibility for a wide range of government benefits. Interesting. These choices seem like they are, I don't know if arcane is the right word, but they seem technical, boring, Wimmer says. They have implications for the structure of the safety net and anti-poverty policies, who's counted as poor matters a lot for federal dollars that go to states. for those eligible to receive food assistance and medical care. Even something that sounds dry, like inflation, has major implications for people's lived realities. The new analysis also implies that low income families are getting squeezed not just by rising costs of rent and healthcare, but by the cost of just about everything. As always, in the United States, it's expensive to be poor and it's good to be rich. Interesting, they talk about the Mississippi Delta. Maybe MOT can talk to that.
Yeah,
Talk to that
it's
point.
yeah, that's the way it is, man. Like food and everything's been going up for a while.
Hmm.
Because Dollar Tree is starting to pop up down there in places where all the grocery stores have closed. And since they're the only game in town, yeah, man, prices have been skyrocketing, like skyrocketing way more than like your average corner stores.
Hmm.
Like Dollar Tree would go in there. No, sorry. Dollar General would go in there and raise the prices to the point to where they're far higher than like corner stores. It's out of this
Hmm.
world. Yeah. So what's going on?
Yeah. Um, and you see the rising of these predatory services offered in these neighborhoods. You know, Western Union, Checks Cash, um, Cricket, these other telecos that keep popping up everywhere, and cheap phones that are very expensive. The quality of some of these Samsung phones or some of these Chinese knockoff phones, you know, the rate on them is being inflated as well. You know, they're inflating them up to 60%. So got you sign into a contract that you can't afford, and if you do lose the contract, you know, you get put into collections, and if you get put into collections, that ruins your credit score, which thus ruins your ability to be a first-time home buyer if you're ever going to be one, because the quality of the mortgage will be dependent upon your credit score, and your credit score has been heavily damaged by these predatory services and systems in place. I don't know how long this is going to be sustainable for. Logic Needed said he's from the Mississippi Delta and poverty there is really bad. I have never been to the Mississippi Delta, but I've heard
I mean, man,
stories.
but it's gotten worse. Dude, it just gotten out of sight, especially like in southern Mississippi, like Picayune area, where a lot of these plants have closed. You know, like where I used to ship out of. A lot of these plants have closed. That's the only game in town, and like a lot of this stuff is packing up and going to Mexico, and that's like the only game in town. I'm telling you, man, poverty is out of sight.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, it's just that the way that they calculate it right now, there's a lot of stuff to be hidden off of it. But once they adjust it for the way it needs to be counted, poverty is probably going to skyrocket like 22% in it from where it is right now.
Hmm.
Um, because I think they use some BS standard like dynamic scoring or something like that
Hmm.
that lets you hide a lot of stuff. But yeah, it's ridiculous.
Let me go to this next article from the bostonglobe.com. Mass residents facing eviction deserve legal representation. This is behind a paywall, so I won't be able to see it and read it to you all. But this is another part of the conundrum where there's not enough housing, people are being evicted, and there's no legal representation for these people, so they just go homeless for the most part. They have no defined address according to the state. So this is all compounded by the previous articles that we've read. We talked about 2053 many times this year alone, and people said, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." 2053 is happening right now. You have rampant rates of homelessness for Black people, not enough savings in their accounts to maintain an emergency fund, cars being repoed after 45 days, people going hungry. You know, the cost of food is going up, and If you don't have a smartphone, you're screwed, because if you don't have access to social media, you won't get the latest buzz and you won't be able to connect with people, and therefore you are network poor. This is a massive issue, and I don't see anybody in the manosphere talking about this at the rate that we're talking about it. We have DE Raptor on the panel. What's going on? Shalom.
Shalom, Mike. Shalom, MOT. How you doing, bro?
Good.
One of the problems we have in
So
this
what's up?
country is that there's a competition now for the dollar. So since the country is going broke, there's a competition for the dollar.
Mhm.
And you got big corporations who are running the country,
Mhm.
and they are all of them. I mean, you read articles about how Microsoft now is going for government contracts. So every one of them are being incorporated into the government military industrial contract structure.
Mhm.
So there's a competition for that dollar,
Mhm.
and they're taking it from the poorest of the people. There are people that the corporation need, and the corporation is gonna pay them the money to produce what they want.
Mhm.
And then the poorest of the people, they're on their own.
Mhm.
So we're even where you see like the politicians, like say Kentucky,
Mhm.
where Kentucky before, the politicians used to pay people to vote. That's the only way you could put it. Now even that money is getting taken away. So guess what's going to happen to Mississippi and Alabama, where lots of black people, in poverty, even Georgia. I mean, this coming through Georgia now.
Mhm.
So in this competition, the military is going to win, and those people attached to the military
Mhm.
are going to win. The rest of the people are going to slowly lose until they die off.
Crazy. Crazy. I don't know what they're going to do about this, but let me get to this next article from Wall Street Journal. The truth about income inequality. The census fails to account for taxes and most welfare payments, painting a distorted picture. This is behind a paywall. Never in American history has the debate over income inequality so dominated the public square, with Democratic presidential candidates and congressional leaders calling for massive tax increases and federal expenditures to redistribute the nation's income. Unfortunately, official measures of income inequality, the numbers being debated, are profoundly distorted by what the Census Bureau chooses to count as household income. The published census data for 2017 portrayed the top quintile of households as having almost 17 times, and it goes behind a paywall. Um, they're right. The census does fail to take into consideration um, some of these some of the income, and for good reason, because in order for you to qualify for some of these benefits from the federal government, you have to be working a certain amount of hours. You have to be in a certain dire position. You have to be damn near half dead, in order to get the majority of these benefits. That's the way they
Unless
like
you're
it.
in there, unless you're in areas that are like 93% plus white, then those standards don't have to be there.
Hmm.
But if it's quite lower than that, yeah. So I'm telling you, what happened to the country was corporate America decided that they were going to overthrow the country by not paying taxes and have everybody else shoulder the burden and the bear for everything else.
Hmm.
That's what happened. And it's going to crash, and it's going to crash hard. And what they're going to have to do is just go back to the constitutional mandated amount of money that corporations are supposed to pay for taxes, which is 30%.
Hmm.
I mean, smaller businesses have to do that, but larger businesses don't have to because, simply put, they could just pay their way out of it. And what you need to do, as soon as somebody say tax cut creates job, lock their ass up for life. And they can serve as long as sentence as long as they can prove that tax cuts create jobs. It never has. I mean, it's just that, like, remember during the Iraq War when Lockheed Martin and Boeing was owning the advertising of the news networks, even though they didn't have a real product that they could sell to any individuals. I
Right.
mean, that's the
NBC,
type of
yeah, they
nonsense.
own NBC.
Yeah, and so so it's like, how is somebody going to compete for advertising when you got a product that you can't sell? What are you going to sell? An
Mhm,
F-16
mhm.
to somebody? Like, of course, they pass rules so that way stuff can disappear. But at the end of the day, man, the government has to work for the people.
Mhm.
Dude, I mean, man, it was never meant for extremely large corporations to get government contracts. The
Mhm.
whole reason was empower, dude, the Small Business Administration is just another arm of corporate America at this point.
Yep. Yep. They're basically a broker,
Yeah.
basically a broker for the government. We have another person who just joined the panel. You have anything you want to add to this?
Oh, hey, how y'all doing? My name's Lou. I just wanted to join in on the topic about income inequality and what black people might have to do for the future. But y'all can continue. I'll speak my piece later.
All right. DE Raptor. DE, I looked up this morning the cost of living in Barbados in comparison to the United States. You can get 1,000 square foot condo or place of residence in Barbados for $150 a month for 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, I'm
Try
actually.
that. Try that in New York. You're going to be paying $1 million. So the cost of living down there is significantly different. And I'm looking at this stuff because if I can work remote in 2020, I'm out of here. No, no
I
sense
mean,
in staying there.
because in those places they see housing as a basic need. It's like a utility.
Yep.
It's not going to cost that much.
Mhm.
And hey, man, got me seriously looking at the DR. Trust me, somebody in my position looking at the DR.
Oh yeah, yeah. I looked in Africa as well, Zimbabwe. Um, where else? Let me use Zimbabwe as an example. In Botswana, the same 900 square foot place of residence, man, a condo would cost you $97 a month.
Yeah, I actually live in Mexico right now.
Oh, really? Are you from the B1 network?
No, I'm not. I'm not familiar with that DB1 network.
Okay. Yeah. What are you paying to live there?
My rent right now it's like $800, but it comes with like they clean my room every 3 times a month, and all my Wi-Fi, light, water is all included into my rent and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And it's pretty cool. It's nice. It's like this downtown. All the clubs are around. All the chicks around here. So it's pretty cool. I like living here.
Mhm. Now, do you speak Spanish?
I do.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually technically I'm kind of working remote too as a computer programmer, and I'm living
Okay.
here. That's kind of what you were talking about earlier about working remote. I do think that's the future, and I think that's what Black people gonna have to do to come up in America.
Yeah, Belize, Honduras, these
Hmm.
places, man, where a lot of your ADOS don't want to acknowledge places that are viable. The rapper Shine. I think he came from Belize.
Yep.
You know,
Rocco used to talk about that in his rap song.
yeah, I think the problem with most ADOS people is they believe that the system is always going to be there. They don't realize that the system is the reason why you're in the position that you're in now.
Yep.
And um, if you think you're going to survive on less than $100,000 into your senior citizenship, you are SOL. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, he did. In San Francisco, rent is like what $6,000 a girl was telling me one time. But that's ridiculous. Well, it is $6,000.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't think they're thinking about this long term. You got black people with less than $1,500 into their checking and savings account together. I mean, it's absurd that they think that this is going to be sustainable for the long term.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're already coming up with ideas to put black men into dumpsters as a way to solve the homeless
Right.
crisis. You know, they're going to convert dumpsters, these green dumpsters that you normally would put trash in there. They're going to put a bed inside of it and a Wi-Fi connection, and you can live stream. You can live stream from there and be select. It's facts, man. It's just facts. Hmm.
Like it's funny because it's so sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh
they're
my
not
god.
taking any of this stuff seriously. And every Friday we bang the drum, and people say you're selling fair porn, fair bukkake or something like that. And it's like at some point you're gonna have to you have to look in the mirror and say to yourself, man, is this really the way it's gonna be? Do I really want it to be this way?
No, hell no. I tell people all the time, man. Leaving America as a black man, it's like when Superman left Krypton, man. There's way more opportunity out there.
Mhm. You know, how long are people in the Mississippi Delta gonna stand there and not realize that there's a world outside of it?
Oh man, they ain't trying to leave, bro. I'm from Mississippi, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bad over there, bro. They're not trying to leave.
No, man, they're
They
not. They're not.
What
I'm
is
from
down there? What is down there anyways?
nothing. Nothing.
cows, grass, uh,
It's like a third
hole
world
in the
country.
wall. Yeah, yeah.
It is.
It's actually like Mexico, for real, for real.
There it is.
Man, tomorrow, what part of Mississippi you from? Maybe you said you from Mississippi.
Yeah, Greenville.
Oh, okay. All right, what's up? I ain't nothing up there.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing up
There's a Mississippi Delta, man. What you?
there. But, damn, man.
Nothing meaningful from like 135 miles from like Memphis to like Greenville. They ain't nothing of note. And that
Nah.
120 foot nothing. Tell you, man.
And black people,
Damn
they
thing.
don't want to learn any skills. They don't want to learn how to, program.
Nothing.
They don't want to
Nothing.
learn how to be an electrician. It's just
You need to come in there with a strong arm. You need a communist or something like that and come in there and like Mao Zedong to come into Mississippi and just basically this is how it's gonna be.
they put niggas to work. That's really what's gonna have to happen. They got to put niggas to work. It's gonna be forced employment.
Hmm. But that's what the black community needs. It needs a Mao Zedong. You need somebody who's gonna say you're either gonna get down or you're gonna lay down. Which one is it gonna be?
That's why I wish Trump was as racist as they claim he is. I wish he would be. You know what I mean? We need that. We need another Woodrow Wilson so black people can come together and be like, all right,
Woodrow Wilson, dog.
You know what I mean? Because black people, if that happened, then black people be like, all right, man, hey, these motherfuckers really ain't playing. We need to band together.
Mhm.
But you know,
Mhm.
I
Let
don't know
me
what's going on.
let me get to this next article.
Go ahead.
I think DE Raptor is having more cream of wheat with the lumps in it. He's trying to pick through the lumps right now. So
No, man, I'm listening to. Well, we got the new guy on the panel, so listen to his opinions. You know what I'm saying?
okay. This one's from the HollywoodReporter.com. Young Hollywood students loan crisis. There are people just struggling to survive. Let me expand this out. I owe $104,530 in student loans, says
Damn.
Brian Kim. You're gonna have to mute yourself, brother. Mute yourself, please. Says Brian Kim, an aspiring screenwriter who also works as a production assistant on a variety of film sets and as a bartender. And it will be higher by the end of this call. Though Kim understands that plenty of today's Hollywood power brokers didn't have a college degree, examples include dropouts Steven Spielberg and Ellen DeGeneres. He attended a master's screenwriting program at UK Sheffield Hallam University. I could come to LA with empty pockets and no connections, or I could come to LA with empty pockets and no connections and a master's degree that could tell someone reading a resume that I am serious, he says. Chem 33 is part of a growing contingent of young professionals trying to make their way in the entertainment industry while contending with six figures worth of debt, illuminating Hollywood's increasingly high barrier to entry. More than one third of the American population between ages 25 and 34 carry student loans, which in the US now total $1.6 trillion. The graduating class of 2016 owed an average of $29,650, up 132% from the average debt of the graduates 20 years ago. Meanwhile, entry-level Hollywood assistant positions commonly pay $12.50 an hour. California minimum wage currently sits at $12, with pre-tax weekly take-home pay landing in the $650 to $700 range. While these wages have remained relatively flat for the past all right, let me start from the beginning. Let me start from the beginning because I just
Man,
got
who was
distracted.
that, man? Man, who was that, man?
D Raptor. The graduating class of 2016 owed an average of $29,650, up 132% from the average debt of graduates 20 years ago, according to an inflation-adjusted analysis of a federal study. Meanwhile, entry-level Hollywood assistant positions commonly pay $12.50 an hour. California minimum wage currently sits at $12, with pre-tax weekly take-home pay landing in the $650 to $700 range. While these wages have remained relatively flat for the past decade, monthly rent costs have increased 34% from 2011 to 2018. There are assistant salaries that have not increased since the early 90s, says Liz Alper, a writer and WGA board member who started the social media movement Pay Up Hollywood, wherein Hollywood assistants share their salaries and cost of living. In the name of transparency, under the hashtag, dozens of former and current Hollywood assistants offered up their salaries on Twitter, most in the $550 to $700 a week range, adding that their workplaces rarely offered benefits nor overtime pay. They also outlined their work duties outside of the traditional rolling call and script coverage, including picking up their boss's children from school, grocery shopping, and driving all around Beverly Hills to find his misplaced Porsche. I was shocked and not shocked to see that assistant wages were as bad as when I started as an assistant 10 years ago, says television writer Dietrich Mangan, Roswell, New Mexico, who is working with Alper to shine a light on industry support staff wages and is herself paying off student loan debt acquired a decade ago from USC.
Crazy.
Yes, though low wages and living on the cheap is a time-honored tradition for the industry newcomers, the more than 40% graduates who spoke with THR say their debt is holding them back from advancing like their peers without student loans. Many note the irony of the situation given Hollywood's recent push for inclusion. Student loan debt becomes a question of access, and not everyone, especially minorities, Black people, have connections in the entertainment industry, says a Latinx producer, coordinator, a production coordinator for a major animation studio. Many express a belief that student debt only will exacerbate the industry's lack of diversity as those from low income families, i.e. Black people who carry debt, will be unable to sustain themselves on assistant salaries. It has become a diversity issue and a class issue, says Alper. Adds Megan, there is a small number of people who can afford to take that pay, and it's rich white kids. The budgeting needed to pay off student loans prevents some of from attending archetypal archetypal industry networking events or from taking meetings that require them to buy drinks or meals. going out for lunches, that's not a thing at all anymore. It says literally in talent management company assistant Tony Baker. I cannot feel good about going out and spending money that I know I don't have. I'm not going to go too much into this, but you know, student loans versus agency assistant pay. Yeah, maybe you should get out that industry for one. And number two, this is probably an example of why Me Too. You have these Me Too
Yeah.
things popping
So
up.
they could move up.
Yeah, sit on my couch, a little casting couch here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the whole Hollywood thing, man. In this day and age, I mean, do you really have to work at Hollywood to make a
$12
movie?
an hour, man. Like, come on, bro.
You
Nah,
know what
that's what YouTube is for.
Thank you.
That's what social media is for. People are making money off of social media. I know women right now on YouTube and IG who make 10 grand a month just for showing their feet to these suspicious men on social media. So
Suspicious.
yeah, I don't know what these guys are, man. Why would you pay to see someone else's feet? Just kind of,
Yeah,
you know.
that
Yeah,
incel.
yeah. Dr. Phoenix says pipe dreams, but I think they're hitting the wrong pipe. Yeah, casting couch, man. That's what this is about, man. You want a job? Yeah, go
My
ahead.
thing, my problem with ADOS is that like if they hate if everybody's against white people, why they rushing to go work for white people?
Because
And
you
why
want
they
to get into the industry. It's the industry itself. You can care less about the color of the person that you're working for as long as you get into that industry. The thing is, I think Atlanta back in the 90s or something like that was supposed to be like the black Hollywood for everybody, for black people. And that did not turn out to be the case. Maybe Tyler Perry has different ambitions with this. Maybe he could spark it now. But the point of the matter here is that $12.50 an hour in California, I can't understand why you would subject yourself to something like that. It can't be that serious. You can make more money with super chats or living in a van and live streaming from a van as a female at least, than you would be working in that position.
Wow.
yeah, I agree. And what does the job even entail? Do you fetching coffee for people? It's not like you get an on hand movie producer experience being an assistant like that. I understand what you're saying. Like I guess you're in the network, but
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. Like
Yeah,
you said,
there's
I
that
think
desire, man. It's that desire to climb that ladder, man. You got $100,000 in student loan debt, and you got $12.50 an hour wage. I just don't understand why people who work at Starbucks as baristas are making more money than that.
that's wild. I mean, if you got 100,000 student loan debt, you already done anyway. I mean, it's
Some of these people
that's
are having kids in those type of situations too, man.
yeah.
Oh yeah. D Raptor, you have anything you want to add? We got like 70 people in here, only like 28 likes. Like, could you please hit the like button if you're not going to participate in the chat?
In America, everybody wants to be a star,
Literally.
and some people. I mean, everybody wants to be a star in America,
Right.
and the way you go about it, um, some people will go, like this guy from Hollywood. I gotta have a master's degree to show that I'm serious, you know.
Hmm.
And even if I don't have a job for another 20 or 30 years, or like you said, a job paying $12.50 an hour for another 20 or 30 years, I still have to do it. You know what I'm saying? And if sometimes people take out student loans, and I've seen people who their grandmother signed that student loan, and then the government is taking $500 out of her Social Security to pay back.
Oh yeah, happened to my mother before she had died. You know, like one of my brothers got locked up, and she forgot like cool 20, 25 years ago. She put her name on some student loans, and she was on her deathbed getting her damn Social Security docked by my brother being locked up, and they're coming after her for his student loan payment. Crazy, man.
And these people don't care how they get what they want. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
it don't matter.
you
Yeah,
got
the
to
student.
stop at the casting couch. You know what? I'm gonna do whatever I can to get whatever I want. And then when it don't work out, they come out and says, you know what? This guy forced me to do this.
Yep.
Nobody
Exactly.
forced me to do it. You know what I'm saying? Nobody forced you to take up that $170,000 student loan. You did it on your own. Now you're gonna be complaining that you gotta pay it back.
DE,
And then
DE, man, like what are you talking about, man? Platinum basket weaving?
Of course. a lot, a lot,
I'm
of,
talking
a lot of
about.
ADOS did that. You know what I'm saying? They got these paper degrees and come out of college making $20,000 a year and owe $100,000 in student loan. They bought a
Man,
car when they were in college. You know, they went
yeah,
on
man.
vacation to Mexico, came down to Fort Lauderdale on the beach. You know what I'm saying? Didn't want to
Advanced
work
blunt
part
roller.
time to pay off the college. Don't want to take a degree that they can make some money out of, you know, and help pay them student, you know, bills part time. They want to party while in college. You know, Oprah told them they're supposed to have high self esteem. You know, sleep around and do. You know, guess what?
It
Now
is
you gotta
Yeah.
find some black man who's stupid enough to marry you to help you pay off your loan. Because you ain't gonna find a white guy doing it.
And it ain't gonna.
Yeah, man, but I don't know how else they're gonna learn how to roll them blunts if they don't learn in college. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. And them step shows. Can't forget about that, man. You got to do the stroll. You got to be on the yard. $50,000 just to do some dances for 4 years. Wow. You could do that at the club.
All right, let me get to this next article from Forbes.com. Are you ready for 56% unemployment? 4 ways to maintain career longevity. Expand this out. A 2018 study by ProPublica and the Urban Institute showed that 56% of the full-time employees over age 50 had suffered an involuntary job loss, defined as layoff, deteriorating conditions, or unexpected retirement. Tracking a larger example of workers from 1992 to 2016 shows that after age 50, only 46.9% of the sample, less than half, were employed full-time for 5 years or more. 18.4% were full-time less than 5 years. 13.7% were part-time or part year, and 3.4% were unemployed. The rest were no longer in the workforce through retirement, disability, or other reason. Late state job loss can be delivered debilitating to your finances. A 2019 survey by Provision Living showed that 67% of working seniors over age 65 would prefer not to be working, 47%, or to be working fewer hours, 20%. The primary reason for continuing to work was financial. 62% cited a financial reason, such as not being able to afford retirement, supporting family, paying off debt. These findings should influence your career planning, even if you're well below age 50. Are you ready for retirement to come earlier than you think? Are you equipped to handle increasing job insecurity? Are you marketable for short-term and part-time work, not just full-time permanent unemployment? Here are 4 ways to maintain career longevity. Plan career and finances hand in hand. 2, strengthen your negotiation skills. 3, build and maintain supportive network. And 4, craft and manage your personal brand. So we talked about this earlier that most Black people are not prepared, for what's about to happen, and going to you think you're gonna go into your senior citizenship, with the same, game plan. Not gonna happen. We read an article some months ago, I think back in the summer, where they were talking about climate change in the Black community, and what they were finding was that most predominantly Black areas are hotter than non-Black areas, and they found that senior citizens who do stay in the house, and don't have access to an air conditioner, they're more likely to die because of the exposure to the heat. So not only do you not have any financial contingencies in place, you also are suffering from a condition of climate change that you didn't even help contribute to. You really had nothing to do with it.
I mean, man, running that AC in the summer could could really cost you like an extra $120 a month, easy, and that's considered a crisis for most people, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any change in that area would be effective to your
Yeah, bro,
to your
that is a
finances.
crisis because look, most people who are on Social Security now, they get about $800 to $1,000 a month, and Black people, they're even lower. I mean, they're like 500. If there wasn't a minimum that was set, for some Black people are getting $300-400 a month.
Mm-hmm.
If they hadn't set up a minimum that you should get. So imagine, I mean, you all the expenses that you have, plus you got, I want to be like my neighbor. My neighbor has got a Cadillac, I gotta have one. And then you got the children who are having children, sending them to you because you got a Social Security check. The children come and live with you. The grandchildren come and live with you. So that's what's going on. If you're ADOS, a woman or a man, your daughter is showing up when you get your Social Security check to take it.
Yep. Yeah, what you're referring to is what they call multi-generational living.
No, she lives somewhere else with somebody, and the kids live with you, and she still show up to get your money.
Well, what I'm saying is you have different generations living under one roof. They call it multi-generational living. But that's what's happening now. We talked about this earlier with the these evictions, and a lot of those Black people are moving back in with their parents and their grandparents all under one roof, causing all types of chaos because those people don't even get along in the first place.
Yep, you live in a house with your grandma. You gotta respect your grandma. She goes to sleep at 8 o'clock, and you bring your friends in the house, making all kind of noise, smoking dope, and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. The young they don't have any respect for anybody. Mm-hmm. That's only grandma.
Mm-hmm. Big Mama is not respected in the Black community anymore.
Nope. Black women never thought they're gonna have to deal with these things. They thought that poor Black man was gonna be always on the heel, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. All right, let me get to this next one from NewYorkPost.com. Dear millennials, your fancy education is not helping you get ahead. Expand this out. Millennials are earning 20% less than baby boomers at the same age, despite being better educated, a new study has found. Research published in a report by the nonprofit New America found that the Great Recession which began in 2007, was largely to blame in the generational wealth divide. The data are clear that during the Great Recession, American families suffered widespread and deep income and wealth losses, said the report issued late last month. However, younger families were hit particularly hard. They experienced greater financial damage in percentage terms than did retirement age families. Specifically, 18 to 34-year-olds earn less than that age group in the 1980s, and a volatile flow of income would be why. A rise in the freelance and contract work associated with employees or employers' drive for flexibility has shortened employment tenure, weakened access to employee benefits, and contributed to an overall decline in income, researchers explained. The study also found that millennials, those born between 1981 and 1996, were more likely to be living in poverty than Gen Xers 1965 to 1980. And baby boomers 1946 to 1964 at similar ages, with 1 in 5 officially classified as poor. Lack of solid income has also affected other aspects of millennial life. The median age for a first marriage is currently 5 years older than it was in the 1960s, and more millennials are choosing to live at home than previous generations, the study said. Millennials are also having babies on hold too. The overall birth rate hit a record low in 2018, with only 29% of women ages 18 to 29 having children, down from 41% in 1998, according to researchers. Millennials are going to be on a completely lower trajectory than previous generations. Reed Kramer, director of the Millennials Initiative at New America, told CNBC, adding that generational wealth gap has reached historic proportions. The study found, however, that those born between 1980 and 1989 were part of the most educated decade, despite being saddled by rising college tuition costs and student loan debt. 39% of the millennials have a bachelor's degree or higher, compared to about a quarter of baby boomers when they were about the same age, according to February report by Pew Research Center. I mean, this has been talked about in the manosphere for years, that a lot of brothers don't care about women who have these high levels of education. They just don't care about it. It means nothing to them.
But don't worry,
Yeah.
man. Game is gonna save them though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, another thing too, man, like with these fancy degrees, like computer science, for instance, computer science does not teach you the productive skills you need to work on a software development project, like for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids are getting these $80,000 degrees. They don't know how to use Git control. They don't know anything about JavaScript, and then the college aren't even preparing the kids.
No, they're kind of just pumping them out as they see fit. They don't have 100% control over their curriculums, depending on where you go. State colleges are usually slow to turn around, and community colleges are usually slow to turn around because their budget is mostly geared to maintaining the infrastructure, not so much as the program itself.
Exactly, and then they try to play it off like, oh no, we're here to educate you, not to get you a job. But every job you got to have a degree. It's a
Well,
scam, man. It's a whole
yeah, well,
racket.
state institutions need steady enrollment in order to maintain the budgets through year over year. If they see any drop off in enrollment, then what happens here is the next time around they don't get the same budget again, and thus the system starts to crumble from under them. So they need to keep pumping these new enrollees every single time, or new enrollers every single time. Even if the system does suck, they have to keep doing it. With private institutions, they don't have to worry about that too much. They get a big endowment. So
Well, a lot of private colleges are going under now because they don't have endowment. Even though the colleges were putting out a lot of degrees, you know, especially in the Northeast,
Mhm.
you got a lot of student bought private institutions that 3,000, 4,000 student body
Mhm.
that now are finding themselves in a position where they have to say, you know what, yes, we're sorry that you only got 3 years of college, but we got to close the doors.
Mhm.
Yup. Yeah, you're right about those endowments. Harvard's endowment is $36 billion. They say they could pay for every student's tuition for the next 200 years with their endowment they give.
Mhm.
That's crazy,
Mhm.
and you can't compete with that.
No. Let me go to this next article from MarketWatch.com. 68 and have $48,000 in debt. Should I take my Social Security now or wait?
Wait,
Dear Katie, I am 68, work full time for the federal government, and plan to retire at age 70. I earn $135,000 a year and have about 18 months to go to hit my 5-year employment anniversary, which will get me a $12,000 a year pension and continue health coverage for life. I also have about $800,000 in an IRA, pay off everything monthly, and my credit score is excellent. The only real debt I have is a $48,000 home equity line, which I have been paying down by $2,000 a month. Does it make sense to take Social Security now, which would be about
no,
$2,800 a month, instead of waiting 2 years when the payment will be $3,400, a difference of $600 monthly?
no,
I could pay off the HELOC faster, but wonder if I'll regret the loss of $600 monthly. While it's harder to give you an exact answer without knowing a bunch of details about your life, like your life expectancy, when I asked experts to weigh in, they said it seems, assuming you don't have any major health issues, the answer is this. Wait, is that what you were saying, MOT?
yeah. Like we're talking about an extra $600 a month. She got 800,000. No brainer. Yo, wait, no question. Like I'm not. I mean, I think this person is more humble bragging rather than asking dumbass questions like,
Mhm.
"Oh, should I take it now or should I wait later?" Like everybody ain't got 800,000 in.
IRA.
Like, come on, man. Yeah, seriously, come on.
Yeah, you know what I could do with $800,000 in the Caribbean or on the continent? Shit,
Man, look.
shit. Well, let's go to DE Raptor. What do you have to say about that?
Look, I mean, man tomorrow know about this already.
Mhm.
They've been put up for about almost 20 years. They've been telling people when you retire, you gotta have $2 million in the bank so you can spend $8,000 a month and still survive till you're 80.
Wow.
You gotta go to the vacation once a year. You gotta go on cruises. You gotta live a lifestyle like you lived when you were working.
Mhm.
And the lifestyle that a lot of these people have when they were working is that they were living on credit cards. They would spend, um, you know, 3, 4 thousand to go on vacation once a year and put it on a credit card. Everything they did is they put it on credit card. Then they end up with a bunch of debt. But people ended up. I mean, now the same people that they were telling you gotta have $2 million in the bank and invest it and all that, ended up with no money
Mhm.
because when the recession hit, they lost their house, they lost their cars, they had to spend the money that they have saved up, and
Mhm.
they ended up in this position now. This woman is lucky. She worked for the federal government. She didn't get laid off. A lot of older people fell into that trap that they were telling people to do. I mean, I almost had that. I almost had that problem because I was trying to retire at 55, and I thought I had enough money, and it so happened that 2006 hit. I was going to work for 2 more years,
Mm.
no, a year and a half more. 2006, when the housing market fell out, I see my investment just disappeared. Disappeared. Well, at 3/4 of it just went up in smoke. So if I retired, if I used to spend like spend, I'd be in deep doo doo.
Mhm.
So the advice that people get and they keep in their mind, they watch the news every night and people are telling them, do this, do this, do this, and they're trying to do the same thing they're doing to the millennials now. They tell the millennials, you got to spend because the economy depends on you.
Mhm.
But these people have a huge uh, debt to pay because either they can't find a job, the job that they got educated for, student loan debt. A lot of them are living at home because the money that they're making is not enough.
Mhm.
And everybody is looking at them and putting the pressure on them to buy houses, buy cars, spend money like there's no tomorrow, and they can't do it.
Well, um, yeah, it's more of a credit-based society. Whip out that card, man, and just charge it. Can't afford your basic necessities, charge it. You want those fancy jeans, charge it.
Yeah, but one of the problems that millennials face is that the government is not investing in them. In my generation, the government actually invested
Mhm.
in in my generation. The people who just came out of the civil rights movement, you know, the government actually invested in them. But after 1981, you got Reagan,
Mhm.
and he came in and took everything that the government used to give to the normal people, the average person, working person, gave it to the military.
Mhm.
Then they started making laws to allow mass exportation of businesses from the country. You had people who used to make, there were certain companies that moved out of the country, but the manufacturing jobs were still in the country. When Reagan came in, out went the unions, out went the manufacturing jobs, out went the investment that they were investing in people in the country, and that was it.
Mhm.
Now you
I
got the
love how
military.
Ronald Reagan get get no criticism
Yeah,
for his presidency.
yeah.
You
Like,
can't beat you can't beat happy days are here again. You can't beat that. You can't beat that happy days, bro.
What that
Everywhere
that
he went,
is that the show that he was on?
yes, that's the show he put on.
Oh,
Everywhere he went, he was
oh, okay.
he was telling Americans, happy days are here again. Don't worry about it. We're gonna take care of business. We're gonna make America strong. We're gonna bring down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev.
Mhm.
Make Americans feel great.
yeah, almost like make America great again, huh?
Yep.
Uh,
But guess what? When the now the what's called debt is coming through. The debt is coming through. I mean, and not only did Reagan, but George Bush continue with it. Him and his
oh
son.
yeah, oh yeah. George
Uh,
Senior was not better.
so you're
Yeah.
paying the price now.
Mhm. All right, let me get to this next article from Vice.com. Millennials will get sick and die faster than the previous generation.
Wow.
Let me Wednesday morning, Blue Cross Blue Shield published a 32-page report detailing the myriad ways in which millennials will see their death decline and healthcare costs skyrocket over the next 10 years. The entire thing is a delight to read and paired very well with my usual morning routine to starting into coffee or staring into coffee and thinking about how fleeting life is. In the report's intro, analysis from Moody's Analytics write that in examining millennial health patterns, they found several interesting and concerning findings. Well, my uh, pardon my French, but I'll freaking say so. Using a combination of data from Blue Cross Blue Shield, the CDC, and prior health studies, the report predicts millennials will achieve the new triple threat of being sicker, broker, and dying younger than the previous generation, Gen X. My fellow millennials have been essentially predicting this very outcome for years, just without all the fancy data, regularly joking that our parents will outlive us. Turns out we've been right the whole time. The report refers to two potential features, a baseline projection or what can be expected if we somehow manage to majorly correct the course of things, and a far scarier adverse projection, or what happens if things just continue bumbling about along the current path of doom and destruction. According to that adverse projection, millennials can expect at least a 40% increase in mortality compared to Gen Xers at the same age. We can also expect to pay a third more in healthcare costs than the previous generation at the same age. And because of that, make about $4,500 less per year. This all absolutely rips. The big economic picture looks something like millennials being less able to contribute to the US labor market because we're expected to be sicker. We're also expected to be less good at our jobs because turns out sick people aren't as productive. The real juicy tidbits, however, the potential causes of what analysts here have identified as the millennial health shock of or a phenomenon they compare to a Vietnam War and the HIV/AIDS crisis. Analysts hypothesize that the major generational difference can be chalked up to rapidly increasing behavioral health problems or things like depression, hyperactivity, meaning anxiety, ADD, and ADHD, and substance abuse. These also happen to be the source of most out of network spending, according to a study released Wednesday morning. Between 2014 and 2017, rates of depression and hyperactivity increased 30% among millennials. Compared to Gen X, millennials between 30 and 39 are less likely to die from boring old things like heart disease and cancer, but are more likely to die from accidental overdose, suicide, and homicide. I love how they put those black ones' faces there. Let me just read this one last paragraph. The real juicy tidbits concern the potential causes of what analysts here have identified as millennial health shock, or a phenomenon they compared to Vietnam War and the HIV/AIDS crisis. Analysts, let me see. Oh, that's the end of the article. Okay, go ahead, MOT.
This is outrageous, man. I mean,
MOT, your mic dropped out.
yeah, I'm here. Hey, you can't hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I mean, no, this sounds more like a hit piece than an actual article that has some scientific facts along with it. I mean, they cited a bunch of range of things that made it look like being a millennial itself is somehow a pre-existing condition. Like, come on, man.
Well, let's take it into consideration. I mean, Dr. Phoenix is he works in healthcare, and he's talked about this many times. You have black males who he kind of focuses on do have a lot of these issues at a vast rate. Not saying it's that the article is 100% accurate, but they're aggregating from these data sources, CDC and the Blue Cross Blue Shield. I would say that those are two credible sources.
Yeah, I mean, but I expect that with black people because we don't care about who they date or who they have kids with or even the preparedness of a kid to survive in society. So that's predictable. But like outside of that, man, I like suppression and suicide, and I'm like, no, you got that stuff kind of right now, you know?
I don't know if I really want to hire, a couple of these guys in the manosphere because they might die on me or something. you know, might be a little bit more costly. I might hire him as a contractor so he doesn't get any benefits.
Don't worry. Then they can supplement with super chats though.
Hmm. Oh yeah. All right. All right. This next one is from the NewYorkTimes.com. Wait a minute. How can they afford what I can't? Let me expand this out. I've done it and you probably have too. Look at a neighbor or friend who seemed to be in roughly the same financial bracket and wondered how do they do it? How do they afford the elaborate remodel and luxury vacations they are bragging about on their Instagram accounts and their private school tuition? The feeling is envy, but it's mixed with curiosity and it often comes with a large dollop of self-criticism. They somehow must be better at managing their money than my husband and me. What are we doing wrong? Just look at a forum on the popular financial blog Mr. Mooney Mustache or Mr. Money Mustache. The question asking whether the everybody seems wealthy illusion is it really just fueled by debt? Attracted a wide variety of opinions, but more than a few express the sentiment of the commenter George C. I often have this struggle where it seems as if everybody around me is wealthy, he wrote, adding that he often wondered how people he knew earned as much or less than he did could afford things he could not. To be honest, at times it kind of makes me feel dumb and sometimes even like a failure at what I do, he added. No, no doubt most people could improve how they handle their finances, but better money management isn't usually the culprit. When people seem to be able to afford much more than their income, which suggests it's often because there is hidden wealth or hidden debt. Wealth, wealth is even more hidden than income because there's no job to correlate it too, said Dalton Conley, a professor of sociology at Princeton University. We have a general idea what a professor or corporate lawyer makes, but in terms of family wealth, there's zero cues. Ellen, who lives in
Hidden
Washington,
hidden
Ellen,
wealth? What does that mean?
assets. Ellen, who lives in the Washington area, knows that feeling of envy and curiosity. Like everyone else, talking about their personal experiences for this article, Ellen spoke on condition of anonymity in order to publicly share her private thoughts about friends' spending habits. For years, Ellen watched her friends who had similar jobs and the same number of children as she did spend much more lavishly on just about everything compared with Ellen's family. They did expensive home additions. They took twice as many vacations to places farther away. They drove nicer cars. And she felt bad about it, assuming she and her husband were simply worse financial managers. We go to self blame when we don't know the whole story, she said. Then it all collapsed. It turned out that the family was largely living on debt. They were underwater on their house and had to sell it. They are now renting an apartment. I did feel very vindicated, Ellen said. I guess we weren't doing anything wrong. Of course, not all people who seem to be living beyond their means are running up their credit cards. Sharon, who lives in Westchester County, New York, has relatives who have paid her children's full college tuition and given the family additional help. She doesn't like sharing that with people a little bit because I'm protecting the image of my husband that he rolls with the big boys, she said. And I also feel really lucky, and it doesn't feel fair. I'm not comfortable, but I'm thrilled we have it. Frederick Wary, also a professor of sociology at Princeton University, recognizes that sentiment. One of the things that helps to protect us as we're trying to make our way through life is that we rely heavily on secrecy. He says we are really trying to protect our understanding of who we are and other people's understandings of who we are. I identify with that feeling. My parents contributed to our son's university tuition, and while I may mention it when discussing college costs, I certainly don't highlight it. Highlight it. I'd rather be seen as someone disciplined and savvy enough to sock away hundreds of thousands of dollars for 8 years of college than as someone relying on parental assistance. So I am part of the problem. Not only do people want to play down their inherited wealth or money from family, but they actively try to hide it. Mr. Connolly said, we have this ideology of individualism and worshiping of the self-made man or woman. And theoretically, there's a correlation between getting more because you work harder, said Yvonne Pullman, a professor of marketing at the University of Wisconsin at Madison School of Business. Inheritance is a violation of that correlation. So why does this matter? What if we don't know where our neighbors got got the money for that new deck? Few would want to few would want everyone's financial status to be transparent. But this secrecy helps reinforce the idea that it is only individual choices, not laws and policies, as well as our national history, that comes into building wealth. It seems like a straight up cultural issue, but public policy plays a role in how we view secrecy about money and also the consequences that secrecy has, said Mr. Wary, who is also director of the Dignity and Debt Network. People need to understand others are in a similar situation, struggling to pay for college or retirement or healthcare, to realize it's not a personal failing and to push for reforms. I'm not gonna read this whole thing. Anybody else have anything they want to add to this?
Wow. I mean, these people complain about nothing, man. Just manage your own household, man.
Mhm.
Stop trying to benefit how everybody else is benefiting. Like, these people, like, oh my God, they got a new car. Oh my God, I'm gonna pull out my fainting couch. Like, come on, man, stop.
Well, it's actually an indicator of whether or not the ideological system of white supremacy actually works, right? Let me expand on this. You go to Methadone Mile here in Boston, you see plenty of poor white men who may have at one point been doing well, but now they're out there shooting up dope. However, black man drives by in a BMW, and people are wondering how he got that BMW. Did he sell drugs or not? But don't take into consideration that he actually worked hard to get to where he's at, and that white male who got that needle in his arm, that's the consequences of his own doing. But that's not acceptable to a lot of people. That the role should be reversed is how they see it. At least
There's
my
a lot of people
my
down
experience.
south feel that way. A
Yep.
lot of people down south feel that way, man.
Hmm.
But it's not only what you said, Mike, but the other part of that the equation is that America pushes that agenda. That if you get people competing against each other, you understand?
Hmm.
Um, you got your neighbor's house got to be bigger than yours, so
Hmm.
it's gonna the builder. You got builders involved in this. You got Home Depot, Lowe's, and all the people who provide like the toilets, the shower curtain, the pillows for your bed, the bed. So the whole economy is built on this mad competition
Hmm.
of people spending, no matter if they have the money or not. and they have to keep that spending secret because if they allow the neighbor to find out, you know what, my car, I didn't buy it for cash. I'm working at Merrill Lynch, but I didn't buy my car for cash. Or I'm a doctor, but I didn't buy my car for cash. You know, I owe this much in debt. You know, I got $100,000 in debt. I might be making 500,000. My house might cost $1 million. I got $100,000 in debt, and your neighbor knowing that will look down on you now because you say, well, you might be a doctor, but you're not in the same bracket as I am. Why are you living in my neighborhood?
It's a very toxic. It's a very toxic perception.
Oh yeah, that's America's built on that. That's what got black people. Well, it's not the only thing that got black people in slavery, but that's what kept black people down. Because if they turn loose, well, you see, you talk about this all the time. Right after slavery, black people started moving up rapidly. People who were one generation out of slavery were building things that Caucasians in America couldn't build. So you can't let that happen to poor white folks in America. Because now it did start wars where they bombed. I mean, they declare war on black people.
Yeah.
Wiped out all the cities, killed thousands of people. You know what I'm saying? And you can't let that happen. You have to have this mad operation, you know, where the government manipulating everything to keep it. And now that they're losing you can't even say the value of the dollar because everything is going into a mad dash down the mountain. You know, from the value of the money to the health of everybody. As you was just talking about millennials. I mean, the whole thing is just going downhill really fast. And they can't keep up that mythology that they built the country on.
Yeah, but
So,
ultimately that's divide and conquer. You know, I keep on beating that dead horse. It's divide and conquer. It is not white versus black. It's divide and conquer. Keep everyone fighting so no one has their eyes on where it's really coming from, which is the few who control the many. All right. So I understand everything that happened in the past. No one denies any of that. But as a very wise person told me a long time ago, once you understand your circumstance, once you understand what contributed to you getting there, once you understand and know all of that, you instantly lose the ability to point the finger and blame. Because from that point on, it's on you. What are you going to do now? Okay? There are not 100 million white people who hate you. There's one black person who does not want you to elevate your thinking and compete and move forward and create the reality you want to see. And that one person is the person in the mirror. And that person got there from this group mindset. Until that mindset changes, nothing will change it. You can blame the boogeyman, the system, supremacy, everything else that you possibly want. Until you change your mindset and understand you have it within you to create the reality you want to see, nothing will change. But since black people want to be comfortable and be victims, this is what it is.
Hey Paul, how you doing, bro? I missed you.
Actually, I am sick. I'm under the weather. It is 4 a.m. in the morning, and I'm up. I can't sleep. How are you? MOT, good
So,
to see you. I don't comment on your
going
vids a
on?
lot, but I'm watching. Excellent work. Mike,
Yeah.
how are you, sir?
Oh, the Minister of Defense is here. Guten Tag.
Guten Abend zusammen. Ich bin traurig, sick.
Is are they charging you for like a walk-in to the emergency room or something like that?
No, actually, I've been in Holland for a few weeks now, so my friend takes care of me. So it's only like the first day.
Mhm.
I was good. We were in Amsterdam for a few days. Now we're back at her place. She lives in Rotterdam, but I got up yesterday morning and I was like, oh man, I'm done.
How is that place, Paul? I haven't been there since 1999, man.
Oh, bro, then you already know it's awesome. It's awesome. It's actually my second trip. Normally she comes to Cologne to see me or come to the States, but this is my second trip to Rotterdam, Holland. So it's nice. I
Yeah,
like
you go to Cologne over there, but in Harlem, man, it's Queens. You know, you have oil and incense burning everywhere. So,
it. Not me. Absolutely not.
all right, let me get to this next article from CNBC.com. Here are your new income tax brackets for 2020. The IRS released the federal tax rates and income brackets for 2020 on Wednesday. The 7 tax rates remain unchanged while the income limits have been adjusted for inflation. Tax rates in the US are marginal, meaning that different levels of the same person's income are taxed at different rates. If you and your spouse earn $80,000 in 2020 and are married filing jointly, for example, the first $19,750 of that will be taxed at 10%. And the income over $19,000 and $19,750 will be taxed at 12%. The 2020 tax brackets affects the taxes that will be filed in 2021. These are the 2019 brackets. Here are the new brackets for 2020, depending on your income and filing status. For married individuals filing jointly, 10% taxable income up to $19,750, 12% goes from for income between $19,750 to $80,250. 22% income between $80,250 to $171,050. 24% income between $171,000 to 600 to $50 to $326,600 thousand dollars or $600. Sorry. Let me go down to the unmarried. You get 10% up to $9,875. 12% on income between $9,875 to $40,125. 22% on income between $40,125 to $85,525. And then 24% on income between $85,525 to $163,300. So this is kind of where most Black people, at least in the, well, I would say most Black people in the manosphere with their super chats, this is all they have to really worry about. And anything up to anything up to that point, that's all they're really worried about, anyways. Especially on those weak channels with those farm animals and their four-legged, goats. So,
Hey, Mike,
yes,
has
sir.
has the government raised the Social Security limit? Like when for those who don't know, because you actually have to have a six-figure income. Once you reach a certain amount of income for the year, you stop paying your Social Security tax. Have they increased that limit for
I,
No,
2020?
no,
mhm.
Okay.
You have anything you want to add to that, MLT?
no, they haven't. I mean, they never have since like the 80s. No, they never
No.
have.
Yes, they have. MOT every year that number goes up and up and up and
Is it
up. And
adjusted for inflation?
yes, it is. It literally goes up every year. When in
Really?
96, the first year I made over 100, the Social Security tax limit, I want to say was somewhere in the upper 90s. Then it kept going up every year. It went up, it went up, it went up, it went up. So, so I was just curious about that. But
That's why I advocate people need to start acting corporately. We need to start incorporating ourselves as businesses instead of earning income and stuff like that. Because the tax code that was changed for the corporations, that's permanent. Like the seven, I can't remember what it was, but I know it's very beneficial for people who own corporations.
which is why I went in, which is why my partners and actually I started real estate myself, but three other brothers who we were doing a investment club. We pooled our resources and started a real estate business, which is why I'm in my late 40s and I'm traveling Europe doing my thing. The business
So
is doing well. It's not about bragging and boasting. It's about your mindset. Had the mindset to start a business, and now all four of us are in that position. We pursue our interests because the business is doing well.
That's what's up, man. Congratulations, dude.
what kind of real estate is it? Like renovating houses? Do you guys get like a apartment complex?
He's in the real
We
estate of real estate.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, okay.
Now
Mike is
take your fitted hat, Paul, and and tilt it forward.
yeah, okay. Yeah, right. Mike is on fire tonight. No, all jokes aside, we started out with two family homes. The key there is you don't live in a two-family home. You rent it out. We started out with two-family homes, then we moved to MDUs, multiple dwelling units. So New York City, you have a building. It's three floors high. There's two apartments on each floor. We started off with those. And as we gained more and more and more, I always had an idea on commercial real estate. So we use all of that to move into commercial real estate. Started off with individual stores, entire blocks, and then mini malls or strip malls, however way you choose to call them. Now we even have a few office buildings, like in Queens and in Long Island, 1, 2, 3 story office buildings. So commercial real estate, one of my partners wanted to make a push in. So now we have a janitorial contract at a few other malls that we have no ownership in. We also do renovation, commercial renovation. Malls tend to have a certain degree of turnover. So we have contracts to do the renovation for those stores for the turnover. And now we also have that janitorial business thing going. So we also have many other interests, and we also invest in REITs. So real estate from several different angles.
Mhm.
Now, where your YouTube channel at, man? I'm tired of hearing about select and non-select and all that. That's what we need to hear.
Well,
Where's
I don't
MOT when you need him?
Where's the MOT? Listen, I leave that MOT. MOT is much, much better at the videos, and I honestly mean that with all due respect. Mike will tell you, MOT will tell you, I start to talk and tell you how I feel about things. I
Mhm.
tend to piss black people off. So
And
I've limited my conversation now to the black card talks. I'll come through then. Only reason I'm even on now is because it's 4 a.m. in the morning and I can't sleep because I'm sick.
mhm.
Black people need to be pissed off.
Listen, black people need to be pissed off at themselves. It's not about white people. It's not. It's not. Okay. At this point, it is self-perpetuating mindsets. For
Mhm.
every single thing you can tell me about white this and supremacy that and laws and some the third and everything else, fine. I can point you to the mirror. In a polite society, we do not blame victims. So once black people were sold the idea of victimhood, it has become self perpetuating. As and I keep referring to brother MOT. I love his videos, bro. You have to compete, and that was what I did from early on, from
Mhm.
college to business school to my second line of profession to the business. Compete, compete, compete. Either you can have a mindset of victimhood, blaming, and failure, or you
Mhm.
can compete and be successful. So
Mhm.
now, when you look at the most successful black men I've seen in my life,
Mhm.
none of them are pro-black. Not a single one. And they do more by giving back to help out black people than any person who's a pro whack or a slow tap. So
Mhm.
I'll leave it
Slow,
there because I'm
You
gonna get
called him a slow tap.
slow tip.
yeah, that's right. The slow tap
Slow
from a
tip.
pro whack.
Wow.
Oh man, let me go to this next article and then we'll go to Dr. Phoenix, man.
I
Um,
gotta I gotta mute myself.
yep, no problem, man. No problem. All right, this one is from usatoday.com. CVS adds to store closings and announces plan to shutter 22 stores next year. After closing 46 stores this year, CVS Health announced it plans to shutter another 22 locations in 2020. The upcoming planned closure of 22 underperforming retail pharmacy stores cost CVS about $96 million as a store rationalization charges.
How?
And it's losing. I can guarantee you they're losing a lot of money from theft too. In its third quarter earnings report released Wednesday, the cuts represent fewer than 1,000. Fewer than 1% of about 9,900 CVS stores nationwide. We believe these decisions will generate enhanced longer term performance. CVS Chief Financial Officer Eva Barato said during Wednesday's quarterly earnings call with analysts. Our real estate footprint remained very productive, and we will look for opportunities to further improve the performance in our portfolio. CVS
That's
officials
a
said
lot of money.
CVS officials said in an email to USA Today that there were no additional details outside of what was filed in its quarterly report and did not release a list of closing stores. CVS has been shifting more floor space away from retail. The company's Minute Clinics started the trend by offering basic medical care, and there are currently 1,100 walk-in clinics according to the quarterly report. CVS CEO Larry Merlo told USA Today last November that the company plans to reduce floor space dedicated to retail products and instead began offering more healthcare services. In April, the company announced it was adding Smile Direct Club's braces alternative in hundreds of CVS pharmacy stores. Officials also announced in June they plan to expand the retailer's Health Hub concept focused on healthcare to 1,500 locations by the end of 2021. CVS is not alone in shuttering stores. In 2019, there have already been 48% more store closings announced than in all of 2018, according to the global marketing research firm CoreSite Research. Based on CoreSite Research's figures, retailers' earning reports, bankruptcy filings, and other records, more than 8,600 stores are slated to shutter this year, and thousands of locations are already gone. Drugstore competitor Walgreens announced in August it was planning to close 200 stores. This is serious business. I talked with a landlord of a commercial real estate a company who doles out space to many of these retail companies. Some of these companies are paying $30,000 a month in rent, and they're not turning profit.
Whoa.
You better believe it. Yes, sir. It's a very lucrative business. I'm sorry, I'm not
Yes.
gonna cut you.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead if you know more about it.
Yeah, so CVS and Walgreens are both victims of two things. Number one, oversaturation. There are too many of them too close to each other.
Mhm,
The second thing is buying online, whether it's
mhm,
Amazon Prime or any other service.
mhm,
You can fill in the blanks, fill in with the name.
mhm.
Between oversaturation and online buying, the stores are seeing um, foot less foot traffic, and same store sales are down. As I've been saying for over a year now, the golden Bible when it comes to retail stores, the golden marker are same store sales, not overall profits. So if you own 10 stores,
Mhm.
what you want to look at the profit generated by each individual store on a year-over-year basis.
Mhm.
So if you have nine that are increasing 10% year over year,
Mhm.
those are your same store sales. Overall health of the business, you would assume, is doing well because overall the business made, say, 12%, no, sorry, say 3% more this year than it did last year. The
Mhm.
problem is that 10th store has been losing 15 to 20% year over year. So looking at overall profits is not what you're looking at when it comes to retail stores. It's same store sales. Now, when it comes to these stores being a commercial landlord, the rents are extravagant, especially within the five boroughs of New York City and Long Island.
Mhm.
The rents are astronomical, and I can
Mhm.
tell you, as a commercial owner of numerous properties, it's an extremely lucrative business. However, we are starting to see more and more turnover. So that a business, so that is not, our business is not immune to it. However, as we own the entire property, one store coming and going doesn't necessarily affect us the way it does the person or the franchisee of that location.
Mhm.
Apologize for the long-winded explanation.
No, no, it makes a lot of sense because when I had that conversation last year, he said they, Best Buy can't maintain their stores. There's no that they were debating about bringing in electric vehicles to fill up the space because a lot of the space is underutilized. Um, Same thing with Sears at the time when Sears was open. Sears couldn't afford to maintain that floor space. It was impossible. They had damn near 80,000 square feet of space that they and most of the store was empty.
Absolutely, because commercial real estate,
Mhm.
the rents are charged at a per square foot basis. In an article that was covered here,
Mhm.
I want to say right around New Year's, commercial
Mhm.
real estates were like what, in Manhattan, as high as $200 per square foot or $300 per square
Mhm.
foot. I may be off
Mhm.
on the number. I forget.
Mhm.
My mind is a haze right now.
Mhm.
So that may not seem that high, but if you figure a store has 30,000 square feet, 60,000 square feet,
Mhm.
that money gets astronomical, very high.
Mhm.
So, off the top of my head, you were saying how the Midtown Nike store, I think the one on 50, whatever street it's on, right
Mhm.
at the block from Tiffany's or
Mhm.
Trump Tower, that they were paying like 1.2 or 1.3 million a month in rent alone from
Yeah.
that one location.
Yep.
So by the traditional same store sale model, that one location has to do at least 1.1 or 1.2 million in sales every month
Mhm.
just to break even. Now, a company like Nike can probably eat losses if it's not doing sales, but it gets to a point where you have to ask yourself how much and how long can you keep eating losses just for the just for the
Okay.
the what? I'm sorry.
The location.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
thank you,
it's a
thank you.
location.
Right. How long can you eat? Excuse me. How long can you eat the losses just to maintain the prominence of having that location? So, with commercial rents, especially in the Northeast, being so astronomically high, and you're seeing less and less foot traffic, primarily due to online sales. Of course, the economy is not helping, but it's mostly online sales. More and more people, unbeknownst to many, are actually taking advantage of ordering their prescriptions online, and they have prescription services. So, with more and more things that you can purchase online, it's reducing the need to run to a CVS or a Walgreens.
Mm.
So they oversaturated themselves to begin with. So now it's harder to contract and absorb losses. So now they have to start to bite the bullet and start closing stores.
Yeah, one of the other problems that they have uh, um, um, is that Wall Street. Wall Street will look at McDonald's and say, "Hey, um, you know, Burger King and Wendy's got a store in this location, and why don't you have one? And McDonald's, you look at that location and say, look, it's too expensive for kind of business that we can do. But they still have to, when they get pounded at their quarterly meetings, when the CEO comes on and all these people on Wall Street say, hey, Burger King is leaving you behind. They're doing great business in Manhattan and you're not doing good business in Manhattan. You got to do it because your job depends on these guys giving you the thumbs up, buying your stock.
Right.
And that's the problem with Walgreens. They have to saturate the neighborhood so somebody can't come in, and then the CEO get pummeled with these questions about, well, why you're not operating this great area? It might not be a great area when you did the demographic because you already studied the area and say, look, all the people in that area, like Paul says, they're ordering online.
Yeah, see, in Boston, we have something called a super Walmart, super Walgreens. It's a massive Walgreens that they designed. I've never seen it anywhere else. This place has groceries and different multiple modular sections and stuff like that. Man, it's something to be it's something to look at. Never seen anything that
Super
big before.
Walgreens?
Yeah, super. Let me see if
Yeah.
I can pull it up.
Well,
So
they're
basically,
gonna change that soon, Mike, because
What
they're
happened?
gonna bring in a dental. They're gonna bring a dental. They're gonna bring in the like what you were reading, the walking clinic. They're gonna start doing a whole healthcare thing.
Yeah, that's what it's designed for. That's what it's designed for.
Right. What they're gonna do is bring in the whole healthcare thing, and then send you to Walgreens to get the medication.
Mhm.
so it's basically Walgreens following the model of a super Walmart. So Walmart had zero penetration in the Northeast, especially New York, until about 10 years ago. I was in a super Walgreens the last time I took my daughter to Disney World about 15 years ago. And that was the first and only time I've ever been in a super Walmart. And the sheer amount of space was mind boggling.
Yeah, this is it right
Like
here.
like a
Uh,
GM plant, Paul. It's like walking into a GM plant, man.
It is. It is. It's
this is it
totally
right here.
true. Sorry.
So this is a massive facility. It's called the
A sushi
it has
bar and a
yeah, it
mini.
has everything in there. It has everything in there, literally everything. Um,
Yeah, you're gonna get Starbucks and all those. All you gonna it's going the way of I don't know if you know about Target. Target, they are doing the same thing as that. They put a Starbucks in there,
Target.
put pharmacy in, they put other
well, Macy's has the same thing now. Macy's has a what do you call it? A Starbucks inside the inside Macy's now.
yeah.
But hey,
Wall Street is driving this trend. Wall
DE,
Street say, well, these guys are doing it. Why aren't you doing it?
DE.
You can cut your costs and all that. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Paul.
No, no. Question, DE. You're older, than we are, but do you remember Woolworths? Woolworths. No, no,
Cowdoors,
no.
Woolies,
Cowdoors
Woolworth.
are worth.
Woolies, bro. That's the Woolies.
Wool
Let's
Woolworths
call it back
had
home in the Caribbean. Woolies.
Woolworths had that model. If you
Yep.
remember, way back in the late 70s when I was a wee lad,
Yep.
Woolworths, you could go shop, you could go and have brunch, the best burgers I ever had, and it had a pharmacy and it had furniture and it had everything.
Yep. That's the way Woolies was built for real.
Yeah,
But
Woolworths.
they put
And
Woolies out of business because it was like that. Remember?
right. Absolutely. I was young, but yeah, remember the late 70s.
Now they're
Yeah,
going back to it.
Yeah. What goes around comes back around again. But I'm gonna jump off really quick. DE, you're absolutely right because one of the things from my years on Wall Street, when a company is publicly traded, they always have to put the concerns of the shareholders first, and it sometimes leads companies to make moves that are not in the interests of the consumers or even the employees. So when I see certain companies moving to making an IPO, the first thought that comes to my mind is that may not necessarily be a good move for that company.
Well, Paul, it's always the fiduciary responsibility to turn a profit.
Yes, it is, brother Ulysses. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Paul? How you guys doing?
Oh,
Uh,
chilling, man.
I'm sick, bro. I'm
So what's
so
up?
under the weather.
Now you're in Holland, so if you want to get well, there's a
Oh, there's what cures that, Paul. I can tell you a little bit about that.
Bro, listen, so my friend took me to Amsterdam. We were in Amsterdam for about 3.5 to 4 days. Bro, anything that you can eat, drink, or put in your body, they have a weed infused version.
Oh yeah,
Even drinking water, they now have weed water, weed tea.
yeah.
It's gone
Yep.
way beyond just brownies, weed eggs, weed omelets, anything you possibly want. I was there like, why couldn't this be 10, 15 years ago before I started smoking weed? This is awesome. And then my next thought was, Ulysses would love this place. Oh man.
Oh, it's
oh
on
man,
the
you got to
bucket
go
list.
over there, dude.
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there, man. I'm
Yeah,
gonna be there.
my sister went there, goes there every year, man. She said it's an amazing experience
It is.
because she likes cannabis too. So um,
But the same way that I'm living in Cologne because it's a smaller city than Munich or Berlin. My friend lives in Rotterdam, so I'm actually glad that she lives in Rotterdam. I prefer a smaller city, a slower pace of life. But Amsterdam is great. Ulysses, you'll love the place, man. You'll love it.
mhm.
It's def on the bucket list, bro.
All right, let me get to this last article, and then we can open it up. All right, this next one is from usatoday.com again. Sears and Kmart store closings, 51 Sears, 45 Kmart locations to shutter. See the list. Days after revealing sparse Black Friday ads, the company that owns Sears and Kmart announced plans to close 96 additional stores. Transformico Transformco, which acquired the retailers out of bankruptcy, is set to shutter 51 Sears stores and 45 Kmart locations in February. The liquidation or going out of business sale will begin December 2nd after the Thanksgiving and Black Friday sales. Previously announced closing stores will not participate in the holiday sale. Sears and Kmart have closed more than 3,500 stores and cut about 250,000 jobs in the last 15 years. After this new round of closing and previously announced closings, the company will have 182 stores. The new closings do not affect the company's recently acquired Sears hometown stores, which specialize in home appliances, equipment, and tools. So there's a crap load in California that's going to be gone. I think California has the largest one. Massachusetts, we only had 2 stores anyways. You see, New York only had 1 store, Buffalo. Puerto Rico had Sears. A little bit of Borica
Dude,
shopping
Puerto
there.
Rico is such a man. In fact, you know what? I will leave it alone.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, we kind of knew this was going to happen. Um, I I don't see what they're going to do with all this retail space. I just saw a Walgreens close not too far away from me, man. Grand opening, grand closing. It's already closed. So I don't know.
I'll tell you what I would do, Mike.
Mhm.
I'll tell you exactly what I would do. And we discussed this many moons ago. What I would do is, and since I'm already set up for it,
Mhm.
I would take the properties, I would take the real estates, and I would create housing. I would
Yep.
create condos, or I would create homes, or I would create townhomes. I would not create low income housing. That may piss people off, but it is what it is. Gentrification is a good thing. I would create housing. That's what I would do. I would also create um, STEM schools. Okay, for those black people who are of the right mind, they would have somewhere to send their kids to school for STEM. And I would also have a trade school where you can learn welding and carpentry and ironworking and electrician work.
Hmm.
That's what I would do with those spaces personally.
Hmm.
Paul, you're talking about these large Sears type locations that they're talking about shuttering.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I've always kind of looked at them as you could do vertical manufacturing in them.
Oh, farming and all kinds of other stuff.
Yep. Yeah, turn them
MOT,
into
excellent point.
manufacturing facilities.
Yeah, you're right.
Like scaled manufacturing, 3D printing. I mean, you can. There's plenty of space to fit those spaces with like metal 3D printers, like companies like Markforged, for example. Like you could take that model and you can throw it into a building like that, and next thing you're producing electric vehicles or components for them, or shit, you name it. But we're talking about a completely enclosed environment where everything is done in house, similar to how Tesla does it.
That is an awesome
Complex.
point because vertical integration manufacturing in America has gone the way of the dodo bird.
A complex. What about growing the same thing that you're interested in? Or,
No. That's another one. What do you think they do in California? Matter of
or
fact, matter,
even
matter of fact,
tomatoes, bro.
well,
Tomatoes. Tomatoes
tomatoes.
indoor. I mean, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, all those things are not indoors now in big cities.
Yeah,
I saw, I think it was a 10-story, one guy put up a 10-story building and started growing this stuff inside the building.
yes, yeah. I was gonna say now. I mean, you could easily apply, cannabis because that's essentially what they do in California. A lot of the grow operations are actually in industrial warehouses. That's actually what put my shop out of business last year. Is because the commercial real estate values all around me had shot up over like say like the past 5 or 6 years with everybody getting out of the porn industry and getting into cannabis. Okay, so what ended up happening was is that the building that I was at, my boss had taken out like a 10-year lease on the place back in like 2007, 2008. So by the time it was time for us to renew the lease, dude, the lease price had doubled. So but to speak to what you're saying, De, yeah, like we can not like not just limit it to cannabis, but we're just talking like you said, tomatoes, microgreens, lettuce, all that stuff, man. You could produce that stuff under LED lights hydroponically, or you could even do a combination of that and aquaponics.
Yep.
And so you got scaled food production.
Do you see why I'm all about commercial real estate?
Absolutely, Paul.
Even from day
Yep.
one, I had a plan, I had a roadmap. Two family houses, then multiple dwelling units, and then buildings, commercial real estate. Commercial real estate was always my goal, but I had to think outside of the box to bring it into reality. So all about commercial real estate.
And then I would say also you could do like um, like co-partnership manufacturing, right? So let's just say you have like so for let's say like the end product, there's 3 to 4 companies that produce components to make one product, right? So what you do is you take those 3 to 4 companies and you essentially put them in one building.
Exactly. Vertical integration of
Yeah, there you
manufacturing.
go.
Bro, because like, all right, I'm a military historian buff. So the Brooklyn Navy Yard had a steel mill on premises. So they made The sheet metal. The sheet metal went to a metal shop, molded into the shapes that they needed. They had all the manufacturing on site from raw materials. They made the electrical components, the plumbing components, the steam components. They made everything except the boilers. The boilers came from Babcock and Wilcox, which is out on Long Island. But everything that went into destroyers and battleships, Brooklyn Navy Yard made on site, vertical integration, and you control costs and your logistics. It's a lot easier to move things around on site than it is to move them around a country or from another country. Vertical integration of your manufacturing process.
Yep, absolutely.
Dr. Phoenix, you're on the panel. What's going on, bro?
What's going on, Dr. Phoenix?
It was good.
Hey.
The Surgeon General.
Hey, hey, I'm liking your travels to Olone. Yeah, you gotta say it properly, Olone. No. There was a couple of points I did want to highlight
Mhm,
from a couple articles from earlier.
mhm.
One, the about CVS. It is not surprising that they would be closing stores and focusing more on their minute clinics and all
Mhm.
their point of care facilities and their point of care testing because it's just so profitable. I mean, this is where you've seen the models of healthcare moving to now is that they're moving to smaller, even more specialized places because again, when you're the whole goal now is to bring healthcare into a community. So every healthcare organization is modeling their healthcare around bringing those services directly to the community instead of bringing people into a hospital setting. Because again, you want to try to keep people out of the hospital because one is just believe it or not, hospitals themselves are not very profitable. I mean, the margins are extremely small for hospitals, but if you're able to bring those clinics and you're able to bring people to where in those communities where they're needed, those are much more efficient and much more profitable for organizations. So it's not surprising that CVS would be moving to those set models because they don't just have minute clinics. They have everything from home health to they do a number of things from
And they just
telemedicine.
acquired Aetna as well.
Yep, one of the largest
Really?
healthcare.
Yeah,
Wait a minute. Who acquired Aetna?
I
CVS.
believe with CVS.
Yeah, CVS
CVS
brought
They
Aetna.
owns
It's
Aetna.
like
CVS
over
bought
the
out. Wait, they bought out the health insurer
Yeah, they're
or acquired
moving.
them?
Wait,
They're moving into, like Dr. Phoenix was mentioning, they're moving into this sort of
Wow.
fast-paced minute clinic sort of deal. I mean,
isn't
we
but don't
covered this before on these hangouts, but on the live streams, but CVS is not playing games. That was a multi-billion-dollar operation that they pulled.
but
Walgreens
Mike,
is doing the same thing, and then Amazon is getting in as well.
Well, we
yeah.
know Amazon. We spoke about Amazon doing that, but damn, I didn't
I
know.
I
yeah,
sent
but
you an
isn't that a
article
conflict of interest
about a
though?
week ago, Mike. It was about a startup. But I do want to say something about CVS and Walgreens and their minute clinics and their point of care facilities. Is that this is a major uh, career opportunity for Black folks, specifically, for Black men. Your minute clinics, your point of care facilities that are ran by Walgreens, CVS, uh, uh, Walmart, Target. These are typically staffed outside of specialty stuff like optometry and stuff, but the general care stuff is typically staffed by nurse practitioners. That's who staff it. So what CVS typically does is that they'll have a physician that would be the chief medical officer. So they might be in charge of a particular district or area or whatever. And so all those CVSs within that area, for example, they would be staffed and ran by nurse practitioners. And so the NPs, because they will hire you straight out of NP school to staff these minute clinics. And basically, you learn the business of building up your own healthcare organization from the ground up, because basically you control it from top to bottom. So
Yeah,
what
patient intake, the pharmacy aspect.
there
God,
is, it's not even just patient intake. Kids are going there to get physicals, to get vaccinations. I mean, you're going there for
I got my
basically.
DOT physical and flu shot from a minute clinic.
Yeah. And and this is the interesting part because I was actually I had an appointment at the VA earlier today, and it was funny because at the VA, for example, you have, VA is the only it's the only place in the only health organization in the country, for example, where nurse practitioners have 100% independent authority, so they operate independently of physicians. So that these and in the CVS system is very similar. You still have a physician that is the chief medical officer who is responsible, who monitors the particular area, for example. But those individual clinics are staffed and ran by nurse practitioners. And again, like I said, I know for a fact because I know a few folks who've gone out and done these. These were six-figure jobs coming out the gate. But the thing about it is that you learn there's sort of there's an adjustment period. It's not the easiest thing to learn, but it is a period where, but you do learn the truly the business of healthcare. You learn it, and you learn it probably, I think, probably which is going to be the model going forward, certainly in the 21st century and beyond. That is going to be the model. It is, you do not want to keep people in hospitals. Again, keeping people in hospitals is really expensive, not just to the patient itself, but to the hospital itself. I mean, that's why you go into a hospital. If you know people that spend, a week or whatever in the ICU, that's like $100,000. That's why you're in the ICU. They test you on everything. They run up the bill because they have no other choice, because that's the only way they can bring in a profit.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
even hospitals now are going. They're also integrating clinics and all that into their operation now.
Yeah,
I seen it here in Florida where
yeah.
the hospitals around me, not only they're integrating that, but one will be a heart hospital, one will be, they specialize like for, I don't know, it'd be eye hospital, heart hospital, children hospital only, children diseases, for older people. One will have psychologists online, on staff, but they're doing the same thing, and they're integrating what do you call it? Online medication.
Well, yeah, you have these community health models that have been popping up. So you have something called a joint commission. Basically, this is what goes around, and they view hospitals accreditation and all that, making sure they maintain their nonprofit status and all that stuff. But basically, these folks go around, and so a lot of what's happening because of recommendations from they call it JACO, the Joint Health Commission. What they're doing now, what a lot of health organizations done now, they've actually developed these population health departments. And so the whole purpose of these population health departments is to figure out ways of how to bring point of care testing and services to communities, And so what's happening now is that you're seeing these models shift from these hospital inpatient focused models to these outpatient focused models, where they're more about building clinics and having clinics within communities so that they're easily accessible by people. Again, hospitals themselves, healthcare organizations in general, are not profitable, are barely profitable. Most of them
Yeah,
aren't.
yeah, and
yeah,
that's why
but
most hospitals are closing. They the upkeep of the hospital itself and the lack of profitability makes it unsustainable.
but
Yeah,
I do have a quick question here.
Go right ahead.
A a a farm a pharmacy company bought a health insurance company. No one sees the problem here, the inherent conflict of interest there, given the
Paul, they're
nature.
telling these major corporations under the Trump administration, merge now. Now is the time to merge.
Oh my
Yeah, this
God.
started on the
Yeah, but
Obamacare. This started
bro,
on the Obamacare. The hospitals and these guys are essentially, the insurance companies are the ones who essentially wrote Obamacare.
Yeah,
And
the
they
insurance
I
companies did. Yeah, the insurance
and they
companies
I
did.
made
know that.
they made it so that you have to go to all these clinics
Mhm.
I
instead of
understand
going to
that.
hospitals because the cost of the hospital. So Obamacare brought in all this, and nobody really paid attention to it because everybody because the Republic was pushing this issue, but we don't want Obamacare because
It was the
it's
Republicans
gonna
who came.
cost.
It was the Republicans who came up with it. It's actually the ACA, not the Obamacare, but it's
Yeah,
I mean, Obama is
And
what they branded it.
well,
Right.
it
yeah.
is,
Well,
but
yeah,
at the end
everybody
of the
calls it
day,
Obamacare.
America does not have true national health care. So
Oh,
now Americans have been sold this idea that's socialism, and they're going to tell you what to do, and it'll be Nazi Germany. Yeah, but Europeans have much better health, and they have national health care. You can't argue facts.
You
Okay.
know, it's
Now,
like it's funny you
because
say
these
that, Paul.
drug companies and the health insurance companies control everything in America, this is what you have. And Americans are fat, overweight, unhealthy people. You're welcome.
You know, it's ironic you say that, man, because I remember I had to get some dental work done years ago when I was in Spain. It was the easiest thing ever and cost me very little, next to nothing. Cost me a fraction of anything. But I say that to say because the other part of that whole CVS story that's not talked about, CVS is also one of the major investors in telehealth. The
Yep.
part of their CVS Minute Clinic model includes models around telehealth.
yep.
So you're having CVS that have made every Minute Clinic also does telehealth as well. So they have their own proprietary uh, systems or whatever that they work with and that they use when they do telehealth. So every single CVS Minute Clinic facility has the ability to do telehealth. So just to be clear about that.
They're
So
gonna be like they're gonna be like a national
Point of
like
sale.
like just I don't even know what to call it, but there's so many CVSs, right? They'll literally be like a just a mini sort of healthcare provider on
Mhm.
every damn street corner practically.
Well, they won't need to be on the street corner if they're going to do telemedicine, right? If they're going to do telehealth.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, just from the sheer amount of CVS locations. Now I know they're talking about shuttering some, but I mean, just like even in the areas where I live, I mean, it's like, dude, if I just drive up one main street for like 2 miles, 3 miles, right? I'll probably run into like three CVSs.
well, it's meant to be accessible by foot every 15 minutes.
yeah, because I think
Yeah,
that goes to
but
what
that's
Paul
not a
said
good
earlier.
business model, bro. That's oversaturation,
Well,
Quinn.
but
You have
Yeah,
well,
too
Paul,
many.
but not if you buy Aetna though.
but that does go to what Paul said earlier because you know where I live. I mean, there's literally a CVS like a quarter mile from me, and then like another quarter mile from there is a Walgreens. So I mean, they are
Exactly.
almost always in close proximity to each other. So you
Exactly.
can't have two major competitors that
Can't
close to
have
each other.
too many close to each other because even with telemedicine, because people are buying online and because they're so close to each other, they actually begin to leech sales off of each other, which comes back to same store sales. Too many locations is a bad thing. You now move beyond the point, or I'm sorry, you reach the point of diminishing returns. Too many locations is a bad thing.
Well, see, the thing we don't talk about to what you all were saying just a few moments ago is that we don't see healthcare organizations the same way we see banks, and they really do need to be looked at that way because most of them are literally too big to fail. Because
Oh, I do.
what we
I
what we
I certainly do.
I mean outside the folks on this panel, but the average person does not see healthcare organizations as literally too big to fail. You know,
Well, you
I don't think most people understand truly how large healthcare organizations are. I mean,
well,
it used to be that in the 80s, you used to have all these outpatient surgical facilities that were opening up. They're all,
mhm.
for the most part, most of that is gone. Most of these small and medium practices have been bought up in the last decade or so.
Yeah.
Certainly in my area, there I mean it's almost unheard of to see a small medium practice. If it is, I mean they may be somewhat profitable or barely,
Or they're
but
like highly specialized in their
yeah,
practice.
exactly. They're very high consultant based, so something like wound care,
Hmm.
vascular medicine, regenerative medicine. I think I was talking about this a few months ago about a place that I do some work at. It was at a vascular medicine, hyperbaric medicine, wound care outpatient facility. So I mean, very specialized. But again, these particular physicians, they do work, and they're very well known in this city and in the state, so they get pretty much all damn near all the referrals. So all the
Why do you
consults for vascular or wound care comes to them for the most part.
why do
But
you
again,
think I keep
very
talking about
specialized
national
care.
health care?
Yeah, it's very specialized care. But the point is that these practices that were just small, medium, sort of the old school way how you did medicine, where you just kind of go see your family practice doc. That stuff is done. I mean, now that's why you see so many primary care doctors, they're moving to direct care models. So you're doing concierge medicine, direct pay models, whatever. So because it's because one, you're either gonna come out of med school, you go do your residency, and if you're in primary care, you're either gonna try to figure out a way to get you a concierge or
Yeah, and I just want to bring this up as well that Walgreens actually acquired LabCorp.
oh yeah. So now they can do point of care testing.
Wow.
They can do
But
point of care
see,
So
testing.
one of them is taking the insurance approach, the other one's going lab.
yeah,
Because lab you got to understand something, man. Labs are some of the biggest unseen healthcare costs many people don't factor in. Most people
thank
don't
you.
factor in. Ask any woman that ever had to go do her gynecological exams or whatever, she has to get those lab exams. They have to pay for a lot of those exams out of pocket.
They
Mhm.
do. And see that business model, that is something that does not exist in most other first world countries because they have national health care. So this business model is a virtually unique American thing. And at the end of the day, the people who actually get hurt the most are the general public. Because when you live in a nation where you don't have to literally don't have to worry about the cost of primary health care, where the cost of prescriptions is literally a flat fee for all prescriptions, right? That that has a carry-on effect to every other aspect of your daily life.
Mhm.
But you can't tell Americans anything. All they had to do was they sold the idea of communism equals socialism equals national health care equals bad, when all three are completely three separate things. But I digress.
I had a
Move into a
I had a
situation where
patient that I some time ago, I like about a couple years ago, I had an individual. He he used to get he had cardiac issues, but he used to order a particular medication called amiodarone. Um, he used to order it from Canada because he couldn't afford it here in the U.S. or whatever, and he had been taking it for over almost 2 decades.
Oh, I have a story about that too.
And the problem was that he never was officially evaluated to continue to use the medication, because the problem with this particular medication is that it causes severe lung damage if it's taken over a long period of time. But they give it to patients who have cardiac issues and stuff like that, because it's a very good medication in that regard. But but some of the long-term side effects that have long been known uh, about this particular medication can be severe. But he took this medication, and eventually the guy died, because eventually he could not breathe without a ventilator. He couldn't.
I think you told me about this one, Dr. Phoenix.
Are
Yeah.
hey
Yeah.
Dr. Phoenix, are you aware of the fact that almost every drug that is sold in America, made by these drug companies, you can literally get all of these drugs in Canada for next to nothing. Also, they sell these drugs in America for astronomical fees, but they can't do it in Canada because Canada has national health care. And US citizens can order drugs through the mail from Canada. Now, the government has been trying to find ways to clamp down on that. Why? Because the drug companies don't like that.
Yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah,
the
yeah.
same as what Mexico too.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you guys were just talking about maybe about a week ago. I think Nagon was talking about he was down in Mexico. He had to get some dental work done or something like that. I mean, it's
It was
very
in Brazil. In Brazil.
yeah, Brazil. Yeah, I mean, this has long been known. I've seen a number of folks who come through, various health systems, and they've had medications that are insanely expensive. You know, folks don't even understand a little vial, a little 3 ml vial for insulin can cost you $100. You think how much is 3 milliliters? I mean,
Right.
that's barely a few drops. You know, but yet, you know, this just for 3 meals of this can cost you $100. And you know, people, you know, we've all heard the stories about the whole EpiPen stuff. I mean, you know, you got EpiPens costing over, what was it?
$400.
Yeah, I think it got up to like $1,000 or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I mean, just insane numbers, but people need it because it's such a life-saving medication.
Well, especially kids. When kids
Yeah.
have allergic reactions to shit, right? You need the EpiPen.
Yeah, and so I mean, they Big Pharma has been trying to crack down on folks ordering and getting medications from Canada for years, but I don't think they will ever be able to do it because again, it's just, you know,
They
it's
don't
kind of the
want
model.
to, bro. It's money. Money. They don't want to. That's why America does not have true national health care. Now, a lot of people will say, yeah, but you know, national health care isn't the greatest either. Well, you know what? Let's look at that. So, if you go to a hospital in the United States of America, specifically to an ER, are you walking right in and being seen in an ER? It's no different any country in the world. So that argument right there, put to rest, non-existent. When
Yeah,
you go see a doctor, all right, you're receiving the same level of medical care and medical technology as you have in the US. Okay,
And that
yep,
was part of the
but
reason you saw urgent cares pop up because an ER visit
absolutely.
is
So now,
insanely expensive. I mean, and they do something in medicine called defensive medicine. So, for example, you walk into an ER, you say, "Well, you know, I fell off my bike, whatever, bumped my head." You know, first, you know, you see that ER doc. First thing he says, "Okay, well, you know, well, we need to order this CT. We might need this MRI, whatever. We're gonna do X, Y, Z." You know, we just go order a whole bunch of stuff that 9 times out of 10 you don't need. But again, we do it. Why? Because it happens. Why? Because one is covering their butts, if you will. But two, you know, it runs up that bill.
Wait,
It really does.
also,
So
real quick, I just wanted to address
America started
a
moving to
oh go ahead, D.
America started moving towards this model long ago. If you see all the car in the 80s, they had about six or seven different car companies in America. Now we're down to four. GM, Toyota has moved their factory in, but Chrysler was left and Chrysler was going. Then you
Well, you
see
know,
Walmart come into the thing. Well, before Walmart, Home Depot came in, and you got Home Depot and Lowe's. They control that market. You got Walmart come in, and you get Walmart and Target. Now you got
Target.
Target.
Tarjay,
Yeah, you gotta
the
say it
correct
properly.
But now
pronunciation.
that you got
Hey,
two monsters in the healthcare field that's taking over everything. They're going to be doing everything up to when they put you in the hospital. They're going to decide, you know what? Okay, we tried everything, put you in the hospital.
Yeah, hospital be like the last resort.
And that is a
Yep.
bad thing because
When what call come in, when your what call come in that you can call when you have to call on your cell phone and the computer say, well, what's the problem today? That's the serious. Five
Yeah.
5 years from now, what Mike was it? You said 2025.
Hmm?
what do you mean? What do you mean 2025?
When
Like
we have
automated telemedicine, like
yeah.
AI driven telemedicine.
Oh no, you're talking 2022, even earlier than that. I mean,
Okay.
Google already has the ability to emulate anybody's voice. So if they wanted to take Cardi B's voice and have her serve telemedicine to you, then there you go.
oh God,
They're
Mike,
doing it with
please
Issa
no.
Rae,
She
aren't
is
they?
as dumb as a bag of rocks. I can't
Well,
stand.
the artificial intelligence would argue otherwise, Paul.
Clearly, artificial. Clearly,
Yeah.
no, but
gosh,
but
she's as dumb as a bag of
I think
rocks.
it does need to be said because we've seen a wholesale consolidation healthcare organizations. Like I said, you know, in the last decade, really the last 2 decades, you've seen pretty much small, medium-sized organizations get brought up. I mean, even where I'm at, we've seen some I've seen massive organizations get brought up.
Dude,
So
Aetna just got bought up.
you think of some of the big players out here. You think of Ascension. You think of was it Pacific West out where Complex is at. You have what's the other, Kaiser Permanente.
Kaiser.
Yeah. So you have some of these big players, but these folks operate regionally. They're not just statewide. These are regional organizations.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Walgreens bought drugstore.com.
yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
I mean, they have to. Nobody. I mean, right now, if Amazon has their way, I mean, they're about to completely rewrite the board. If they're, I mean, technically they already are, but I mean, they're about to completely rewrite the face of healthcare, especially pharmacy as we know it.
Yeah.
Hey, let me just address a quick comment. Somebody was saying for next to nothing. I guess what Dr. Phoenix, when you say for next to nothing, right? And they're saying give us details, no over exaggerations. Okay, basically you're talking about what the price for medication is at, say, like the generic pricing level versus the brand name price. Okay, when you look at the difference between the pricing of the two, okay, the generic pricing in contrast to the brand pricing, the what you would pay for like the brand, okay, it's next to nothing. That's not to mean it's like it's a few cents or anything, but there is what is properly priced for the generic equivalent, which is the same formulation. However, when we're talking about a brand, that's when we're looking at what you mentioned, like the EpiPen fiasco that happened, because there was a specific maker who had a patent on this. And what they did was because, look, we needed to, we had shareholder obligations that we needed to make. So guess what we did? We inflated the price of it to drive the stocks up and everything. That guy, Martin Shkreli, do you guys remember the guy who bought the Wu-Tang album? Okay. So his ass, he did the same thing with another drug where he drove
Go ahead,
Paul.
Can I add on to that? So prescription drugs, your doctor gives you a prescription. Excuse me. Doctor gives you a prescription, and you have to go to the pharmacy, and you have to wait for them to tell you how much that drug is going to cost. Okay, so for people who say that, because I'm seeing comments, well, the European model isn't so great. Okay, fine. Walk into a pharmacy and the prescription is a flat fee. It's not $20. It's not $3. It's not $150. It's a flat fee between a certain age to a certain age. So, like for instance, in England, I know for a fact it's between the age of 16 to 62. It's a flat rate. Under that age or older that age, prescriptions are 100% free for all medicines. So now, if you're in America, you don't want to go to the doctor because you don't have health insurance. If you live in a country that has national health insurance, you're going to the doctor because you're not paying a dime. And when he gives you prescriptions for medicines, they cost you very, very little amount, a flat fee, which is low, literally a couple of dollars, or in their case, a couple of euros. You're receiving the same medical technology as America, but you're receiving a higher level of healthcare. Because as we all know, depending on the neighborhood and where you live, determines the level of your healthcare. But over there, the healthcare is the same regardless of the area in which you live. If, again, you're living in a major country. Now, if you need a major surgery in America, they put you on a waiting list for kidney transplants. Yes. You have to wait for major surgeries. Yes. I myself had a major reconstructive surgery. I have healthcare. I still had to wait several months before I got that surgery. If you're in it's countries that have national health care, it's the same thing. The difference is you receive a much higher level of health care and you do not pay direct point of service costs, and you're barely paying for prescriptions. Now, how can you possibly tell me that that is not a better system?
Well, Peter Lavelle from RT, Crosstalk, just some feedback in the background. He said he walked into a Russian hospital to have his cataracts worked on, and he opened up his wallet to pay, and they kind of looked at him like he was crazy. He said, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to pay. He said, no, it's free.
And
And
that's Russia.
you know,
Let that sink in.
and you
Let
know,
that
here's the
sink in.
ironic thing about
Where I live
cataracts.
is a much better country than that.
Here's the ironic thing about cataracts. Everyone will get cataracts at some point because you get it as you age. If you get old enough, you'll get cataracts.
Really?
Yeah,
I
everyone
thought
is
it was
going.
hereditary.
Now it could there is some of that, but it's really something that occurs with age. As
Okay.
you will get it as you age. Practically every person at some point will get it. You know, here's the thing. You know, to what Michael just saying and what you were just saying, Paul. I mean, this goes to the article that Mike was reading earlier about millennials paying more for less. I mean, this is the problem. We're not understanding that. You know, at least for my parents and my grandparents, we're talking about healthcare devils at 1.5, 10% of the GDP of this country. We're talking in 2019, healthcare is 25% of GDP. This is insane.
You know what? You know what? Listen,
And we can't sit here and have these silly ass remedial conversations when it's very clear America spends an inordinate amount of money compared to every other industrial country for healthcare, but have far worse health outcomes.
exactly, and I don't understand why that is so difficult for people to understand. But you know what? That was a rhetorical statement. I do understand why it's so difficult for people to understand. So, you know what? Um,
See what a
I
lot of folks don't
highly
understand that.
recommend people read a book. It's called Quitting America by Randall Robinson. Okay.
you know, what a lot of folks don't understand is that, believe it or not, a lot of healthcare in this country, it really is subsidized. But the problem is that healthcare is just so insanely expensive that even subsidizing it is not enough.
Because it's a profit driven model for the
Yeah,
drug
it's fee
companies.
for service model. That is the
Okay.
model of healthcare. It's
It's
fee
for
for
the
service.
it's for profits for the drug companies. And you know what? America does not pay so that other countries in the world can have low cost drugs. Number
Do you know how
one,
somebody
that is
put up
parochial
Truvada?
thinking. Number two, that is absolutely incorrect. That may sound nice, but that is absolutely incorrect.
He put up somebody in the chat put up about Truvada. Truvada is one of those newer medications on the market, but it is used to treat Hep C and also HIV. But it costs next to nothing in those developing countries. You're right, but do you know how much it costs here in the U.S.? I was just at an event about 2 weeks ago, a dinner for another Hep C medication slash treatment. Only been on the market for about 3 years, but it's a 98% cure rate. In fact, it's so effective that they will allow you to get on the liver donor list, even if you have Hep C, and you'll get the treatment. You'll be completely cured of Hep C, and they'll still allow you to donate your liver in the event that something happens to you.
You know what? Also, this.
So,
Let's say
but you know
you.
how much that treatment costs? That's
It's
even with it
ash.
subsidized, twenty
It's
four thousand,
astronomical.
twenty
It's
four thousand
astronomical.
dollars.
And if you get sick, you're people who are losing their life savings and losing their homes because of the healthcare for-profit model in the United States of America. People are not facing those issues across the first world nations of most of Europe. So, you know what? You can't argue facts. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
just
looking.
gonna leave it at. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'll let the brother Mike say what get to where he has to get to, but I'll leave it at that.
No, I just wanted to show this telemedicine website. Basically, the three-step process and the common medical conditions that they address based on uh, their pricing model. You select a condition to start. Interestingly enough, they have STDs on here. I don't know how you would assess someone's STD through telemedicine. Got to be very interesting to do something like that.
Well, if you were friends with DJ Pope, then yeah, you probably have an STD.
Yeah,
It's ironic that Mike put that up because there's actually some even more boutique telemedicine online medical services specifically for men.
Mhm.
and it's catered. They have positions on on staff where you can talk to them over the phone or voice over IP whatever,
Mhm.
and so you can do it that way,
Mhm.
and they can just give you a quick assessment, prescribe you something like Cialis or Viagra, for example.
Wow.
They'll just do that. There's a number of these if you just Google it, there's a number of these little boutique type of medical online medical sites where you can go as a man and you can get all manner of men's health issues addressed because they have physicians on staff that can do a quick assessment of you, write you a script, bam, you can get it. You can get the stuff right there online. Never even
But
have to leave your home, and then
even
you do
that's
it in
going to
private.
yeah, and even that's going to go away because of artificial intelligence and smart bots, right? So when you ever go to these retail pages or even a customer service page, you'll see these little um, bots pop up like a dog or something like that, and it says, can I help you or something like that, and then you kind of type into it what your problem is, and then it spits back a response. This is happening right now, so you wouldn't even need on-site staff to do much if the artificial intelligence has been curated and cultivated well enough to actually assess this stuff. Especially because you're looking at all of these issues here. I mean, I don't know why anybody would go to telemedicine for hair loss. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Um, Premature ejaculation. You nutted quick. Okay, why do you need somebody to? why do you need? Why do you need that? Why do you need help with that? Got other issues going on in here, man.
But again, going back to the article you
You're
read
not right,
earlier
Mike.
about depression and stuff like that, I swear I was just talking about this like a few weeks ago. That article you read, I swear I was just talking about that a few weeks ago about depression robbing millennials of prime years of productivity. I was just talking about that.
Mhm.
And again, if people are depressed, it leads to other health issues because again, you develop bad health habits because you're depressed. You know,
I would argue that that is a somewhat societal created problem because with this whole participation trophy culture, you are entitled to everything. You show up, you get everything. You're as good as everyone else. You don't have to compete. So now when these millennials get out into the real world and they realize that there are winners and there are losers and that there is a meritocracy, they're like, they can't cope because they were always told that they were special.
I agree with that. There's certainly ineffective coping mechanisms that are happening here. I 100% agree with that. I think it was a panel I was listening on a few days ago. Mike was doing, and they were talking about that, and I think some brothers was talking about they were managing millennials and they were having a problem with millennials because they have these inflated egos or you know inflated sense of self, and so there was all these issues that were popping up as a result. So I certainly believe there are ineffective coping mechanisms that are happening, especially I would say especially among the younger ones. And I have personally seen there are a lot of folks, especially in the healthcare, you get a lot of folks going to these programs, they come out and then think you're supposed to be breaking the bank, and then finding out now you're starting at the bottom of the totem pole. You got to work your way up like everybody else did. And
Instead
a
of
lot of
breaking,
folks.
Oh, so
instead of breaking bank, they're breaking Brown.
so what you mean to tell me is that you mean to tell me that dating coaches are telemedicine now? That's what you mean to tell me?
Oh
Hey,
yeah, there's a
I
market for
mean,
100%. That's
I,
right.
I mean, I mean,
100%.
hey, I, I mean, I
Dating
mean,
coaches, maybe you got to have that game because MOT, you have to be select because you deserve to be select. You are entitled to be select.
Right.
You are entitled to get chose by the best because you are entitled because you are special.
Yeah, up,
Correct.
up, down, left, right, BA, select.
Select chart.
All right, Mike.
if I can be just really honest, this conversation, I never even heard this stuff until I came in this space a few months ago. And oftentimes when I'm
Neither have I, and
when I
and it
when
is
I'm out in my
stupid and it makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Go ahead,
I
go ahead,
laugh at it.
Go ahead, Dr. Phoenix.
No, I was gonna say, over the years, man, I've had personally consulted with a number of brothers, on their health issues. And when I talk to these brothers offline, to be very frank, it would be those brothers that would call themselves select kind of brothers that I see most of the time.
Mhm.
To be real frank, so I don't know where this idea come from, where you just gonna mac your way or talk your way out of something. Look, I don't know. I mean, we're just living in an environment. We're living in a world where, again, I mean, you see some of the major issues that affect black society. I mean, health is right at the pinnacle of it. I mean, everything. That's why I think more brothers should get in healthcare. If you really want to see what's wrong with Black America, go into healthcare.
Mhm.
Go work in one of these local hospitals in the hood some damn way. You will see it all.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I
Yeah.
understand what he's saying.
The
Just go
butcher
to
shop.
go to Brookdale Hospital in Brooklyn. Yep.
The butcher shop.
All you know about it.
That's what you guys call that,
Brookdale
really.
and Kings County and Interfaith. Yeah, I know all about it. Out in
Going there with
Queens,
a
you had
gunshot wound, you end up losing your goddamn legs or something.
literally.
Wow.
You had Mary Immaculate in Queens. They called it Mary Inaccurate. So yeah, I know.
I
Yeah.
mean, you got hospitals like that, and I know of a few of them like that in Chicago, where yeah, you will walk in there with a gunshot. You might leave out with a couple of missing appendages. So yeah.
Sold on the black market. Your
Hey,
fucking organs.
It's the cost of doing business, man.
hey, like I said, I just think that a lot of these conversations that happen, if you're in the healthcare, man, you truly do see it all. I mean, you see it. I mean, I see everything. Women who chose wrong. You walk into the, you end up in ICU because you got postpartum bleeding.
Wait,
You
wait,
know,
wait,
you
wait,
got
wait. Postpartum bleeding. Explain that.
so oftentimes for a lot of women, especially black women, many black women tend to have high risk pregnancies for a number of reasons. It can be a lot of it, if you ask me, my personal opinion on the matter is a lot of it is truly related to socioeconomic reasons. Because again, if you're poor, you're laying up and having sex and procreating with poor men. I mean, it truly is a life or death a choice.
Mhm.
But oftentimes, what happens, a lot of these women have complications for various reasons, and a lot of them experience bleeding after pregnancy. So what happens is that normally there's a period where the placenta is supposed to pass and all that. For some women, it might not be the case. For some women, they might experience bleeding because they might have had cesarean sections. A number of reasons. It can be a myriad of reasons, but black women in general tend to have more higher risk pregnancies compared to other groups of women. So they might end up in ICU because yeah, they have uncontrollable bleeding and you can't stop the bleeding. And so yeah, they admit them for a few days.
Mhm.
Seen that quite a few times. And eventually you do get under control, and oftentimes they have to get transfusions and stuff like that. So I mean, so yeah, it's a lot, but it happens a lot. If you were to Google postpartum bleeding in African American women, there's a bunch of studies that pop up.
Mhm.
A lot of women die post pregnancy because of that. There's actually a very one of the major stories out right now that's bringing a lot of attention to black women and postpartum bleeding and postpartum complications is a
Mhm.
story of a black couple. His wife died about, I want to say, about a day after she gave birth to their second child because she bled to death.
Wow.
And they didn't, and physicians ignored it, the nurses ignored it, nobody didn't catch it. By the time they finally caught it, it was too late.
Mhm.
So I mean, these are common issues. Certainly in my city, very common issues. I mean, very common issues. I mean, you go to just about any major urban city, where there's a significant black, there's a solid black population, you're going to see similar issues.
Mhm.
I mean, so I mean, these are very common problems, and that's why I say, oftentimes, I mean, there are. I personally believe there are a lot of socioeconomic reasons related to that. A lot of just unhealthy environments black people find themselves in. A lot of
I
unhealthy
couldn't agree
relationships.
more with that first one right
Yeah,
there. Your socioeconomic strata that you presently occupy.
yeah. And again, I mean, this is, I mean, again, like I said, if you were to Google this, I mean, there's a lot of research that certainly suggests that, when you're in a low economic strata and you're procreating, you're at higher risk for for these types of complications.
You have to make better choices in life. You
So
have to change your mindset. So
this idea of select and non-select, I mean, the research
it's
just
bro,
shows
it's
that
garbage. It's total
it's
garbage. It is
trash.
total BS, man. It's
Go ahead, Dr. Phoenix.
No, I was just saying, no, I was agreeing with Paul. I was just saying it was trash. I mean, it's so this idea is completely irrelevant. I mean, the stats say otherwise.
Mhm.
You're not gonna game your way out of the fact that the mother of your child is bleeding to death and nobody doesn't recognize
So what's the fastest way into healthcare from an academic standpoint?
it. I don't think there's no fast way. I mean, I think to get if you truly want to have the ability to influence what happens to someone within a particular organization, I
Mhm.
mean, at the shortest period of time you can spend is about 7 to 8 years. If you want to be a PA or a nurse practitioner, about 8 years. If you want to be a physician, it's about 12 to 15, depending on what you do.
Mhm.
Supertrez has talked about it. I mean, these are not careers an immediate return. It's your ROI is on the back end. It's not on the front end. It just takes time, and that's just how it always been. I
Mhm.
mean, it used to be the case that years ago, the only reason you even have associate degrees in nursing, for example, is because associate degrees in nursing didn't pop up until the 80s, and they only popped up because of the mass shortage of nurses that the U.S. experienced. So because the shortage was so severe, the nursing programs had developed these associate degree programs to meet the needs, because originally they were diploma programs, and then there were bachelor's programs. That was it. And so because in the 80s you just had this massive shortage, you had all these programs. You had the community colleges and a number of colleges that developed ADN programs to meet that need. But again, I mean, if you're a new nurse, you couldn't just walk into an L&D, a labor and delivery. It's very hard. I don't know anybody that's ever gotten into one outside of that. And obviously, if you want to go the OB-GYN route and be a physician, that's about a 4-year residency outside of 4 years of med school. If you want to do like women's health or nurse midwife, I mean, that's another that you have to get your BSN first. Then you have to go to a graduate program. So that's another 3, maybe even 4 years, depending on what you do. So I mean, there is no quick way to do this. There just really is it's a very specific pathway, and you just have to commit to it.
All right, I think that's a great way to end this live stream, man. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if you've not already done so. Share the video if possible. Also, hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Just as an FYI, as usual, we are not certified financial planners. If you want a certified financial planner, go to cfp.net, look up one in your area. We do not give out financial advice on this channel.
Can I
All,
also make a disclaimer too?
yes, sir.
I am not providing anyone with any medical advice.
Mhm.
I will advise that you consult your primary care provider if you have any questions related to anything medical.
And call 911 if this is an emergency.
911 is a joke, though.
Oh man, here you go.
Oh man.
Send all commentary to Flex Design.
And I'll forward it to Flavor Flav.
Mhm.
Oh shoot.
Shalom, everyone.